Meeting of the Finance Standing Committee is called to order at 9:35 a.m. on April 28th, 2025. Thank you all for being here with us today. We'll start with the roll call vote. Alderwoman Finlayson.
Present.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Present.
Alderman Huntley. Present. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move approval of the agenda as written.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from last Thursday's meeting?
Move approval of the minutes from the April 24th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, Director Simmons, thank you very much for being here. Mr. Mandel, thank you for being here. We're excited to have your presentation. Ms. Kalin, if you can put 15 minutes on the clock, and then we'll turn it over, Ms. Jackson, and then we'll turn it over to you, Director.
Good morning, everybody. For the record, I'm Kevin Simmons. I'm the emergency manager for the city of Annapolis, the director, and to my right is Dave Mandel, deputy director. Good morning, Chairman Huntley and members of the Finance Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on the OEM budget. The modest OEM budget is not about expenses. It's about an investment in readiness. It supports early warning systems, training for first responders, emergency operations, planning, and community outreach efforts that build trust and save lives. I look forward to walking through our needs and priorities. I welcome your questions. Thank you for your continued support of OEM and a safer and more prepared Annapolis. So, FY25 highlights and major trends. Responded to local emergencies and deployed to national incidents. We responded to many emergencies, disasters, and crises, but the response from OEM is not just in town or local. We send members to the Key Bridge collapse as well as other outside emergencies. Administered winter relief program and expanded community partnerships. Our motto is no one dies from exposures on the streets of Annapolis. That's our attitude for the Stanton Center Warmer Relief Program. We serve 1,655 patrons with 98 activations in our Food Friday program. We continue to fight against food insecurity in Annapolis, and every Friday serving over 800 Annapolis residents, and this program only serves Annapolis residents. Secured $1.5 million in grant funding. We're consistently securing grant funds to the city, funding public safety, cyber security training, and materials for police and fire. Special events. OEM takes the lead in planning large-scale and complex special events. Substance use disorder programs. Our substance use disorder program sees a constant decrease in overdoses, 33.9% last year alone. Professional contributions and EM partnerships. OEM staff takes a regional stage with their level of professional certifications and leadership roles throughout the state. Going to looking ahead, FY26 expected trends and events. Maintain readiness for all hazards. Maintain readiness by hiring and training newer staff. OEM-based training with the departments on their emergency support functions. Focus on emergency management related plans and updates. Focus on updating our plans. We have over 50 plans to maintain. As I reported last budget cycle, we are behind in updating many of our plans due to staffing shortages that we struggle with. We're working to overcome this. Continue to enhance preparedness efforts for operational resilience. We continue our successful citywide exercise, which some of you attend every year, but also our strategy is the resilience of our systems to ensure that essential services remain uninterrupted even during extreme circumstances. Increase community engagement. We're tailoring our outreach programs to different communities to ensure relevance and build trust, improve engagement, and addresses unique needs and vulnerabilities more effectively. We do that for each different community out there. Potential increase for severe weather, meeting the challenges of changing weather systems in an evolving climate landscape. On June 5th, 2024, 9 confirmed tornadoes hit the state of Maryland. We've never seen anything like that before. The landscape is truly evolving and changing. 2 of the city's top 10 floods happened in 2024. The number 3 flood was in January 2024 at 5.1 feet, and the number 6 flood was in August 2024 at 4.54 feet. So we're constantly dealing with that. Reevaluating and prioritizing programming. We continue to evaluate our service delivery and our capacity based on our current staffing. And in navigating uncertainty in federal grant funding and policy. I'll talk a little bit about that. I have a slide on that as well. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our performance measures. There are several typos in your budget book on our performance measures, so I do have the correct performance measures here. But I want to put your attention on the left side of the screen, notes regarding our performance. Out of 7 budgeted positions, OEM had 4 vacancies for a lot of the time. We had, for lack of a better word, a mass exodus of staff from our department. Right now, we filled those spots except for 1, so we have 1 vacancy. So as far as the performance measures, the performance measures are color-coded. So how FY26 budget changes will affect performance. Yellow means achieved via the FY26 enhancements. Green means we achieve it through full staffing. And blue means achievement through grants or other funding. Again, the numbers may look different in your book because there were some typos on our performance measures. So quickly through the performance measures, number of facilitating exercises, training, and outreach, we are meeting the mark. Number of preparedness and response-related programs supported by secured grant funds, meeting the mark as well. Number of plans based on the breadth, range, and complexity of the plan. We have a little bit of a struggle there, but I think that by the time FY25 is ended, we will make that mark there. Number of resiliency and mitigation initiatives, that 1 is supposed to be a 5. And we're coming along on that one as well. We haven't met the mark yet. Number of fatal and non-fatal overdoses. The benchmark is less than 20 overdoses per month. We're averaging 5 a month, so we're meeting it there. Number of substance use disorder prevention, education, treatment, and enforcement, harm reduction, and quality of life programs, we're on the mark. Number of opportunities made available to improve the lives of those with substance use disorders and their families. We are moving right along, but we have not met the mark yet. Number of terrorist-related training prevention measures initiated. We're still working on that. Our benchmark is 3. We have 1. Number of National Incident Management System and ICS initiatives established. The benchmark is 3. We're well over that. Plan development, progression, and number of actions taken, 3. We're on the mark with that. So let's talk about the enhancements of note that support OEM during this FY26 operations. So we only had 3 enhancements, and you're looking at 2 of them. Civic Ready better known to everybody as the robocall. We asked for $7,200, and that's to fund the increase of the Annapolis share of the cost of the program. The cost of the program is about 28,000, 27-ish, and City of Annapolis pays $7,200, and the remainder is paid by Anne Arundel County. And then our annual exercise, and this is the support cost of the annual exercise. Alderman Huntley, you went to the exercise last year for your first time. I think you enjoyed yourself. So the cost of last year's exercise was $4,000, and that went to overtime and it went to supplies. And what we're asking for is $4,000 for the cost of this year's annual exercise. And if you look at the bottom bullet there, City of Annapolis Code Section 11.48.060 requires us to conduct these exercises, annual exercises, every year. And city department directors, senior staff will participate in interagency training and exercises to develop and maintain the necessary emergency response and preparedness capability. So I've been here 15 years, and we've done 16 exercises. And we have not missed one, even through the pandemic. Alderwoman Finlayson, this slide is for you. You always ask this question, so I thought I'd head you off at the pass. Substance use disorder funding allocations. You always say, where does the funds go to? So I broke this down for you. Now, the funds for this will be coming from the opioid restitution funds. These are monies from opioid lawsuits directly from the manufacturers to the city, and also coupled with health department grant. And that grant is somewhere between $31,000 and $35,000. So here's where it goes. To the NAM program coming out of the mayor's office, $2,500 for supplies, contract services $2,415.95, and then salaries and benefits $45,700, and that's for Tiona's salary, Tiona Hayes' salary. Your Life Matters from the fire department, overtime and benefits $32,500, and their supply budget is $5,000 for that program. APD SUD in the police department, overtime and benefits $26,000, supplies is $3,000. And in OD Free, that provides oversight in all of the programs, contract services is $24,000, and that's for Brandon Gosnell and some community liaison folks for their salaries. And then training and education for all of the program staff at $11,000. That comes out of the OD Free budget, which is from Office of Emergency Management. And basically, we get the health department grant, which is $31,000 or $35,000. I don't know which this year. And the rest of it from the opioid restitution funds goes to the other three programs. And we're seeing a lot of good results from this. Almost done. The impact on federal actions on OEM grants and all. On March the 20th, we received a memo from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem outlining a freeze on our grants. Even though the memo was dated March the 20th, our grants were frozen in late February. They were also frozen for a few days in January. So when I say frozen, that means we could not, even though we had the grants were given to us, we could not use the funds. We could not reimburse the city for the funds that were used, and that went on for 2 months. So not last Thursday, but the previous Thursday, they released the funds to us. So I didn't know how this conversation was going to go when I came before you all today. I thought that I would be asking you for funding of $65,000, which we use to help out our operating funds along with what we get from the city, and then have the city fund 3 civil service positions that we fund with grant funding. So fortunately, that's not our conversation today. As of 2 Thursdays ago, they released the funds to us after 2 months of not being able to have it. So hopefully, we won't have any disruptions. So, thank you for your attention, and we're open for questions.
That was some excellent timing, Director. You had 30 seconds left on the clock. Way to go.
Do I
Thank
get
you very
a
much.
prize or something for that? Thumbs up, I'll take it.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I have forgotten who got the first question last week. So I will say I'll turn it to our senior member to start the question.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Simmons, and welcome back, Mr. Mandel. It's good to see you. My first question is about your org chart. There is no deputy in your org chart. On page 86.
86.
Yes. So there should be a deputy in your org chart, correct?
They're not even showing the director in the org chart, are they? What I'm looking at in page 86.
Page 88 has the staffing summary, which has the deputy.
I'm sorry?
Page 88 has a staffing summary, which shows the deputy. This is just org chart of, it's not by,
I'm sorry, you have to speak up. I'm not understanding.
page 88 has the staffing summary, which shows the deputy. Page 86 is the org chart of more programmatically what the department does.
I think that we should include the deputy in the org chart. We use the org chart. I'm not sure who changed the format, but the deputy should be appearing. And I noticed that in the police department also. This shows us our line of authority. And we have an office listed without a person. So should that not be the director of emergency management? And that, I mean, we show that in a couple of other departments. I would like for us to show the deputy in the departments where we have deputies. We don't have deputies everywhere, but we do in this department. We have a major in the police department. We have a deputy in
Fire department.
public works, I believe.
So our
Is that an
instructions.
assistant?
Go ahead, Autumn.
So can we change that to show the deputy the position in this department and other departments that have deputies?
Our instructions for this, and I don't know if you can remember when I had a longer presentation, you would actually see, Mike Malinoff, and you see me, and then Dave, and then you see
Right.
everybody. We actually show you what they look like. But our instructions for this was just to give our programs. So what you see on page 86 is just the programs that we have, planning, operations, and all of that. To Jake Trudeau's point, on page 88, they do have the director there. They have the director, the deputy director, the senior, and also the results from the class and comp study, the updated results on page 88. So,
Well, is
ma'am.
this, and Ms. Buckland's back now, so she can answer this question. I'm very concerned that we've changed the format so that our positions are not accurately depicted in the org chart. We have in this department no director listed, no deputy, and that was my initial question. There's no deputy listed on page 86 as part of the organizational chart.
I'm not aware of any changes to the instructions. The part of the instructions that initially went out was to have an updated org chart. I'm not.
So maybe there
in
weren't,
the other. I mean, in the other departments, you see the org chart. There's no.
some of them
particular-
have them and some of them don't, I believe.
Yeah.
But I've noted in a couple of departments that are coming up that there is no deputy, and there should be. we use the org chart not for programmatic outlines, and maybe there should be a separate one.
Yeah,
But-
that was having an updated org chart was part of the initial memo, to the best of my recollection. We certainly have not deliberately excluded.
No, so we've never showed an org chart that has positions. Now, if they want an internal one that shows, the hierarchy of director, deputy director, and all the people that roll up to that, then that can be provided by the departments. But for the purposes of the budget book, we show it programmatically, the organizational chart by department programmatically. The staffing summary then shows the hierarchy of positions.
Well, may I add, that is not how it has always been. And there are definite changes to the approach that we're taking to the budget. And I understand the need for the programmatic approach, but I also understand the need and the desire for the staffing approach so that it's clear. At one time, and I mentioned this last week, our budget used to include everybody's name, everybody who worked in the city and every position they had. And slowly we've gotten away from that. So we don't know who's who. Our org charts give us a line of authority, not just programmatically. And we've been talking about changing some of the org charts so that the line of authority is different. And I'll say it's the law department is one of the discussions we're having. Should the law department answer to the mayor, or should that department answer to the city manager, like all other departments? So I would ask that we please restore that process of putting our staffing in the org chart. We don't need names, but we do need titles. So, Ms. Buckland, is that something you can ask departments to do for us?
Yeah, I don't see any problem with doing that.
I think
Okay.
my thought would be we should just make sure it's consistent. I can see an argument for having it
Yeah.
be titles, as Alderwoman Finlayson is saying. I can also see an argument for not having it be that way. But I noticed transportation does have the deputy director in their org chart. So let's just make sure it's consistent, would be my
Yeah.
request.
No,
Well, I think that if I hear Mr. Trudeau saying it's a programmatic org chart, then we need to say that.
Yeah.
And then there's the staffing org chart, and we should have both. If the programmatic one is important, by all means, we should have it. But we also need the staffing org chart. So, and there again, we can see the consistencies in doing it that way for everyone. So, thank you. That was my first question. My second question does take us to the staffing summary. And I thought we had added a career ladder in your department, Mr. Simmons, but I only see one step. Is that because we don't have anybody in that emergency management planner 2 position? Okay, I see
Right.
Ms. Buckland saying yes. And my note to myself is, you have 8 staff, really?
I have technically 7. I mean, we have the COVID logistics officer that came on board when we had COVID. We kept that person. That person works once a week. And basically what that person does is does our supplies and inventory, does some parade marshal work, does some special projects for us once a week. So technically, I'm 7 staff strong. Right now, I'm staffed at 6. I had to not hire the 7th person once they froze my grants. I didn't pursue hiring a 7th person until my grants came back. So now I'm on the hunt for that 7th staff member.
So how many of your positions are grant funded? And I want to come back to
3.
the 8th position.
3, the 2 planner ones and the education and training position.
Are grant
Funded, yes.
So the city is only funding
4
4 out of the
out of the 7.
7.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And going back to the emergency management planner 2, that's not listed. Is it funded, Ms. Buckland, since it's not listed in the org chart?
So for FY26, with the career ladders, because that's new everywhere and we're still working through the procedures, getting our hands around the timing, the budget overall has some money set aside for the impacts of career ladders rather than trying to guess which departments are going to end up with changes. But for next year, we should be further along and have a little bit more experience under our belt to be able to perhaps distribute that a little bit more. But for 26, it's all in one place right now in the non-departmental account that will then account for those changes for this next year.
So does that mean Director Simmons can hire that position, fill that position?
So it's not a new position, but what it does mean is that once the career ladder is fully built out, if he has staff that meet the criteria for that non-competitive promotion, that would be able to happen. There would be funding for it to happen. So it's not an extra position, but it's room for the people who are in those grades to grow themselves.
But that will increase his number, because then someone will have to take the place of the person who moved to the next level.
No, the position itself, the position itself, it doesn't increase the number. So, like he said, he's got 7 now. He would still have 7, but rather than one of those being a planner 1, one of those would be a planner 2, right? So it would just go with that person would just advance within the series.
And I understand that, but that still means that there's room for a planner 1. Or are we trying to eliminate planner 1 now that that person moved to planner 2?
No, the goal is to have the same number of people, not to shrink that number, but to allow the people within that number to be able to grow and advance within their own career, right? So he has 7 now, he would stay with 7, but those folks would be more senior, more advanced. They would be moving up that career ladder.
So the good thing about this, the career ladder, and I appreciate the class and comp studies results, and then I have a 3-step career ladder, is that this is a great selling point for Annapolis OEM. So where I've had difficulties in the past because of the salaries not being competitive and all, a selling point is I can bring you in at a planner 1 with the thought that after a while and you meet certain criteria, you can go up to a planner 2 and be paid more. And then with more criteria that's, and objectives that you've met, you can go to a planner 3 and get top salary for that position. So that's a great selling point for me when I'm trying to get people in the door.
I understand that, and we thank the Common Class Study for doing that. But I thought they only gave you 2 steps instead of 3. Was
Okay.
the end of the day it was 3?
3 steps, yes.
Okay. I still find it concerning that we then lose a position. If someone moves from planner 1 to planner 2, then we don't have a planner 1. That sounds like the strategy. So you can't move someone
Yeah.
to planner 2 and have a vacancy in planner 1 and not increase your numbers.
So so I'm going to use an example from my past, but it's a similar idea. So at a time when I was overseeing fiscal operations, we had accountants, and it was in a series. It was accountant 1, 2, 3. And so any given position, depending upon the candidate who came in, what their history was, their experience, their knowledge, they might end up qualifying for any one of those 3. Once they were in there, if they met the criteria, they could move within that ladder, but it was still always just one position. So if someone who had been there a while they might have ended at an accountant 3, and that was great. When that became vacant, we would hire, and again, you'd do an evaluation, where do they fit, right? And then they'd have a chance to move up. But it was always just the one, it's that position. It's not additive. There's not an expectation. So if you had a crew that stayed, let's say for the sake of argument, that every single one of the folks that Kevin has now stays, all of those folks might end up at emergency management planner 3 eventually, and that's fine. There's not an expectation that you can only have one or whatever. That's up to, did you meet the criteria? And it's a way of those people advancing. But he's got 7 slots, right? And the idea is to maintain that, but to give people an opportunity to compete against themselves in some ways for that advancement within the ladder, rather than competing with each other.
Okay, and I do understand that. I just think, and maybe I'm too in tune to what OEM has gone through in the past. Starting with, I guess, 3 people, and one of which we had to really fight to keep. Actually, we've had to fight to keep everybody in that department over time. And then we've gone to 3 people, and then 5 people, but most funded through grants, very few funded through city dollars, through our budget, through our program, which I think should be a concern. So I just want to make sure that this department isn't treated differently from other departments, and that there are no opportunities to decrease, but rather to increase. Because as we can see, and you've got 2 full pages of your accomplishment, probably outweighing, and I'm sure some of this overlaps to other departments, but the work that this tiny department does is pretty phenomenal. So any opportunity to diminish what they do, not what they do, but who's doing it, I'm concerned. So just understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Being one of the sponsors of this department from day one. So, okay, so if Director Simmons, if you're comfortable with that, my last comment was, you do all this with such a small staff. How do you make it happen? And you only have a couple minutes, so I'm sorry.
This has been a particularly rough year. Again, we always talk about folks coming to the Office of Emergency Management. They get trained up, they stay there for a year, and then they leave emergency management for federal jobs, making a lot more money. But this particular year, usually it happens 1 person at a time. This time it happened 3 people. And I had a vacancy. So at some point it was just myself, the deputy director, and the senior planner. It was just us 3. And we went down to the war room and we put up on the board what we could do, like emergencies, etc., what we would do if we could, and then things that we said we're not even going to attempt that until we get staffing. So we hired someone in November, hired someone in December, and hired somebody in January. So these folks are very, very smart. They don't have a lot of experience. They're coming along great, but it's going to be a minute before they get up to snuff. And the beauty of the class and comp study is that finally OEM has competitive salaries and other mechanisms to help us keep people in-house, the career ladder, et cetera. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, we should keep that in mind. Never forget that fact that I always say you train them up and then they move on to bigger and better things, but only because you've given them the opportunities. And I've acknowledged other in the community as people raised issues about who's speaking for whom. And I've said, your department is the perfect example. All of your staff come before us to speak about topics that they're responsible for. You know, you've empowered them to step up and do their job to the fullest, and therefore they're valuable. And then somebody hires them away. So maybe you need to rethink. No, I'm kidding. But thank you. That was my
And
last
one
comment.
thing I might add too is that when they leave, most of them really don't want to leave. I mean, it's just that they've been offered phenomenal sums of money, and if we had the
Mhm.
ability to make a counteroffer, I think even if we didn't match dollar for dollar what they're getting, they liked it here. They liked working here. They liked folks serving the folks in Annapolis. I think they would have stayed. They would have
Mhm.
stayed.
So thank you, sir. But
Thank you. Alderwoman O'Neill?
Yes, thank you very much. My question for you is winter relief. We're told Stanton Center is soon to start renovations. What happens to winter relief during the renovation?
So I've had some discussions with Director Johnson, who very much supports our program. And in our discussions, and we almost did it this season, is to move everything to the auxiliary gym. It has a separate entrance and exit and all. We looked at it, and knowing how long for some of these renovations and upgrades to happen, I said, let's just go on with the Stanton Center. And we did. We went with the Stanton Center. We were able to stay there for the whole winter relief season this year. But that's the plan, is to go to the AUG Center at Pitt Moyer.
Thank you. That's it.
That was quick. Okay. I had just two questions for you. Actually, three. So going back to this COVID logistics officer, it sounds like a reasonable position. Sounds like they're doing work that's important, but the name seems a little bit goofy. We're in 2025 here. Do you feel like it is important to continue calling it COVID logistics officer? Is that part of the grant that funds it? Is the position really related to anything related to COVID?
You go ahead. I'll let my grant guy talk about that.
Thank you, Alderman Huntley, for the question. Dave Mandel here. It was initially supported by one of the American Rescue Plan Act grants, funded by MEMA, passed through
Right.
by MDEM, I should say, Maryland Department of Emergency Management. At the time, it was just logistics officer. And the grantor, the state, came back to him and says, no, if this is a COVID-related position, the title has to be COVID logistics officer. So we had to do that to make sure we were funded properly. And we actually looked in, every year we put in for a renewal. This is still an important position and we still have grant funds to cover it. We sort of have the conversation, can we take the COVID part out? Because this is a valuable position no matter what. And it's a major process to change a position title, as we all well know. And so we haven't gotten traction or the need to do it, to put in all those hours. So we have not, made that change a second time to take that name back out. But I'd say we'd be fully in supportive of just calling it logistics officer. That's what we call it informally. We just had to call it that for the grant when it was instituted.
Got it. And so that grant is still funding the position fully?
It's the COVID relief funding is gone.
Right.
But we have one of the slides that the director mentions we get a grant from the Emergency Management Performance Grant in the amount of $65,000. We weren't sure what would happen. He's funded out of that $65,000. So as long as we get the grant funds that we've always gotten, we're covered for that position. But times are uncertain, but so far we're okay.
So going back to your presentation, could you go back a few slides to the performance metrics? I just want to make sure I'm understanding these correctly. Yeah. Yeah, this would be a good slide. Thank you. So can you explain to me again the difference between the yellow, green, and blue?
So what I wanted to illustrate to you all is where some of the funding is going that we're receiving as far as enhancements, and then what we can achieve full staffing, because that's been a problem.
Got it.
Right.
Okay. I think I'm understanding. So the yellow, it should be achieved via FY25 enhancement, right? not FY26?
FY26. Going into FY26, this is how we're going to pay for that.
Got it. Okay, but it's achieved via enhancements, whether
Right.
you've achieved it in FY25 via the enhancements or in FY26. Okay, that's what was throwing me off as much as anything else. Thank you. I really like the way you did this. It's very useful information for us, especially for your department where we know there's a lot of grant funding. I might think about asking everybody to do this here. I think it's really helpful. My last question is about the opioid restitution fund and your substance use work. So you guys tell me if this is what you see in Annapolis, but one of the things I read about going on nationally is that we are seeing a decrease in opioid deaths, but we're seeing an increase in deaths from, call it broadly, uppers, right? From cocaine, from methamphetamine. No, not, I don't mean fentanyl. I mean, like stimulants. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. And that these can be particularly worse because we don't have ways to treat addiction in the way that we do for opioids. We don't have ways to reverse overdoses. So I'm just wondering, how's your department? Is that something that you guys have been seeing in Annapolis from your work? And how do you think about at some point pivoting to some extent, not 100%, to this new concern?
So we take all that into consideration and we work closely with the health department and all. We try to figure out programs and what's the best plan of attack. We don't see a lot of that in Annapolis. Again, heroin, opioids, and some kind of concoction of different drugs that they do. What I struggle with is that when I have the overdose, when I lower the overdose, when they increase, what I can't shake is that even if I increase the overdoses, 10% of them are always fatal. They die. So I just can't get the fatal ones down. And I think earlier, a couple months ago, we had 3 on pretty much the same day or right around the same time in Ward 6. So we're successful. We're getting overdoses down, but fatal overdoses is always 10%. And I got to figure out a way to deal with that in some kind of way. So I'm struggling with that part of it.
Well, I guess I would just ask, as you're looking for sort of broad context, things to look at on the rise in FY26, that rise of stimulants nationally as a concern is something that you guys would keep an eye out for, OEM.
We'll certainly do that. Yes.
Are there any other questions for my colleagues? No? Alderman Arnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Many of my comments, I think, are more directed to the city manager and the budget manager. I don't see a strong connection between your organization chart and your performance measure. I've tried to check off boxes like planning, training, resiliency, substance abuse. I have some questions about that, but there isn't a crosswalk, and I think I can make the same comment. Most of the org charts in the budget document, they relate to the performance measures, but getting into the budget on page 88, one of the things that I'm looking at for all the departments is their breakdown of contract services, and this does not give us. Your contract services are listed over here as 87.3. This list adds up to 48.1. So I'm wondering, what are the other contract services? Maybe that's detail that's in OpenGov, but here.
Correct.
Okay.
May I answer? Sorry to interrupt you. May I answer that question? So that by code, we're required to just detail out the contract services account, and that's what the contract services account, that's what this total ties up to. If you remember, there's many other accounts that roll up to the contractual services category. So that's what that delta is going to be.
So the topic of contract services is important for a couple of reasons. One, Alderwoman Finlayson and I worked years ago on using contract services, particularly contract personnel, instead of making them civil service, but also contract can be staff extenders. they can provide implementation and allow the staff to be more productive, more functional. And that's why I like to look at the service breakdown. It's going to be hard to jump back and forth between the budget book and the open job. But the very first one here, winter relief, and then up on the top of the page here under the performance measures, particularly cyber resiliency and continuity. Over time, the Office of Emergency Management has jumped in to fill void. But I wonder why in the long term, things like winter relief shouldn't be more in the Office of I call it community caring, but it's community services, and why cyber resiliency isn't an IT function, or at least there's some kind of way that we know that when you're working on cyber in our own IT system, that there's some kind of coordination between the two.
It is. The cyber threats, cyber disruptions is a terrorist-related event, which falls in my bailiwick. And that's actually a team effort primarily with the Office of Emergency Management, ITS, and the Law Department. And as we've seen with Anne Arundel County, those particular agencies are prominent and are the forerunner when you have events like this.
So thank you for that. And that takes me back to the org chart, which is what I think of OEM's primary function, is these external threats. But I don't read that here in the org. I mean, it would seem like it would be something very, very much featured.
So in the org chart here with programs, if you're looking at page 86,
Correct.
that would fall in resiliency and recovery.
Okay. That maybe needs to be made a little more explicit. The whole issue of substance abuse has several questions. I'm trying to relate it to OEM function. And again, this is one of the things where I think you've filled a void, and I don't know where else I would put it. But when you look at your performance measures, it is heavily featured. And I see you do some training, but really, other than accounting for cases, what is the Office of Emergency Management function in terms of the substance abuse? And is that not something that really is more directly related to the health department in the county? And what is the coordination there between you and the health department?
So sure. So just going back to 2017, I had nothing to do with substance use disorder. So Governor Hogan, it was such an epidemic in the state of Maryland. So Governor Hogan looked around and said, hey, look, I need a coordinating agency that can bring all agencies together and put all of their force toward this epidemic. So he looked at emergency managers across the state because we specialize in coordinating and all. So I was pressed into service in 2017 by Governor Hogan, along with all of the emergency managers. And we went lockstep with the health officers in the state. So this has grown to the fact that we have an opioid prevention team with Dr. Gedden in charge. And the vice chairs are myself and Preeti Emmerich from the Anne Arundel County Office of Emergency Management. So we actually coordinate and bring this whole program forward. And we've done that since 2017, and it's worked. We've seen results.
Do you have a follow-up question on that, or
No.
thought of something else that I wanted to?
I only have one last question, but not a follow-up.
Okay.
Or
No, go
maybe-
ahead. Go ahead, Alderman.
Oh, no, the real stumper is, what in the world is NIMS/ICF?
National Incident Management System incident command system. That's a process. When you have many different agencies working together toward a goal, you have a person who's the incident commander, you have a person who's the deputy, who's logistics, planning, operations. That's a national system. And actually, in Ellen Moyer's day, you all adopted that by resolution, right? So anybody that comes to Annapolis, we have a big incident. If we're operating in the incident command system in NIMS, everybody knows what's going on because they're following that process.
Can we get a footnote in the budget book that tells us? I'm not sure I still understand what it is, but it's featured in your performance measures, so I assume that it's important.
Yeah, it's
Trying to figure out what it was.
it's a process for running large scale incidents.
Thank
Director
you.
It's a
Simmons, I got
standard.
2 more questions for you. One is hopefully pretty discreet, and one's a bigger one. The hopefully easier one is, it looks like your funding for telephone is doubling this year compared to last. Could you explain that?
Well, we've added one person, right? And I think, didn't we have a problem last year? That
Yes, but that's not related to the issue. I think it's the core of the question. We do have more telephones, more cell phones for the added staff that we got last year because we're all 24/7 on call 365, and we try not to ask folks to use their personal phones to respond to incidents. But the biggest reason, Alderman, for that increase is the payment for the Cisco landlines in the Emergency Operations Center. So we came before you a year ago to ask for an enhancement to pay that bill. We were the last department in the city to have to find grant funds for our phone bills, and the council granted that. So the reason for the increase is because we have 33 phones in the EOC, and so we used to have to pay that out of a grant, and that changed last year.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you for explaining that, Mr. Patel. My last question for you, and this is the one I've been asking everybody. If the council said to you or the mayor said to you, you had to cut 10% out of your budget, where would that come from, and how would it impact city residents?
it would come from staffing. No question about it. And how would that affect city residents? We would be less prepared and less able to respond at the appropriate level.
Can I ask you to be a little more detailed? When you say staffing, do you mean cutting hours for staff we have or cutting staff positions?
Cutting staff positions.
Question. Actually, I have two. Director, last week there was a violent incident in the community, and there was concern that the community was not made aware, even though it was on Facebook and on social media. Our robocall system, and what's it called? Something different now. But our robocall
Ready.
system is available to all departments that have emergencies, is it not? Could you speak to that?
It is non, I think it's 9 departments who actually use that.
9?
9. And it's available, 9 agencies that use it.
Mhm.
And it's available for use. And the police department is using it. And they can use it for those type of situations where warranted. So, and they can also share the information with us, and we can put it on our Prepare Me Annapolis app and certainly send that out to folks as well.
Are there standards set, and maybe this is the question for Ms. Buckland, whether there are standards or should be standards as to how the robocalls can be used? Or Director,
In an emergency like you're speaking of, we could certainly use that system. I'm not going to speak for law enforcement because they're investigating. They have to look at things that might compromise an investigation or whatever. But in the past, I know that they used it. Said, hey, look, if you're receiving this call and you live in this area, I want you to stay home and stay in the house until we tell you that it's okay to come back out. Something. It might be a barricade situation, etc. So they can certainly use that.
If I can just add one.
Alderwoman
Do
O'Neill
they,
has a
do
comment.
they
question.
know they,
Can
do
we-
they know, and am I finished? Do they know that they can access it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's my ultimate question. Thank you.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
If I might just add, I did have an opportunity to talk with Deputy Branford last week after I had
Mm-hmm.
suggested that word wasn't going out. And he did say, if you recall a previous incident, there was a robocall that went out with glitches where it was, and that they worked through those glitches and were
Mhm.
waiting on the okay, I believe from IT, that those glitches were fixed so that the information going out wasn't more confusing than not.
Mm-hmm.
So he did say that because my concern was that when we say we put it out on social media, not everybody has social media. And so it's fine to say, yes, it's all over social media, but the people that I was getting information from aren't necessarily on social media. So he did say that they are working through that system and waiting for the glitch.
I raised the issue this morning because I wanted primarily the departments to know that they have access to this system, as well as the community at large. That there are opportunities to get the information, and people who aren't on social media, even though they may not be, they have a cell phone and can access, if they choose, to get the Prepare Me Annapolis app. And I don't think the police department has an app any longer. They used to have one.
They did have one, I want to say about 7 years ago, right before Chief Jackson came. And basically when they put out something, we would follow up on Prepare Me. But there's a relationship between us and their dispatch. If they need something out, they'll call us and say, hey, can you put this out on Prepare Me?
Okay.
And the deputy was whispering in my ear, telling me a good point, is that for the robocall or Civic Ready, we actually supply the training for the departments, and many times we give them the script, the appropriate script to actually put out, so it could be more effective.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Mandel. Director Simmons, we really appreciate all the hard work you do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
At this time, do I see a motion to recess the Finance Committee until 10:45 a.m.?
Motion to recess.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Thank you. And I didn't ask my question about enhancement.
Finance Standing Committee meeting is called back to order at 10:48 a.m. on April 28, 2025. Thank you very much for being here with us, Director Flinner. I know you're, how many days into the job are you? Okay.
Turn your mic on.
Make sure your mic is on, everybody over there. Well, thank you. Thank you to the whole team for being here. We know it is a team effort and you're putting that team together. So good to have you guys here to talk a little bit about our newest department and what you're going to get done in FY26. So I'll turn the floor over to you.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be here speaking with you all today. Before we jump in, I did kind of bring the entire bullpen with me today to help answer any questions you all may have. But I just wanted to begin by thanking this whole team next to me. It's their achievements, their hard work, and their successes that we're reporting out on today. Thank you for making my job easier. It would be way harder if we had a bad year and we had to defend ourselves. So a lot of good news to share with you. And then in our very candid conversations together, we have a general idea, I think, of where we might be going in the future, but welcome all feedback, suggestions, and ideas. We're still kind of formulating our plan in our department as we go. With that, I thought I would kick things off just very briefly, kind of describing to you my vision for the Department of Central Services. I see us as the city's primary driver of procuring, protecting, and maintaining all of the city's assets and the employees and visitors who use those assets every day. That's why we're here.
Can I just interrupt and ask you all to introduce yourself, or if you can introduce all of them?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'll let them introduce themselves if you all would like to. Go ahead, Mike.
Good morning. I'm Mike Garasha, Procurement Officer.
Donovan Harrell, Project Manager, Facility Project Manager.
Corey Bradley, Risk Management Administrator.
Troy Naylor, Facilities Maintenance Supervisor.
Thank you.
I was about to say my general philosophy is being a good steward of the city taxpayer dollars and all the grant dollars we receive. So I am anxiously looking forward to spending all the budget dollars you give us to the best of our ability and as responsibly as possible to achieve all of our goals and objectives. And then lastly, I believe just in taking a common sense approach to saving time, saving money, and saving effort in all of our processes and all of our workflows that we put out. With that, today we're going to talk about how we did last year, how we hope to do next year, and then share performance metrics and some other items with you. So highlights from last year, we did create the Central Services Department. I began with the city on April 10th. Here we include all of central purchasing's metrics about PO, solicitations, and Amazon orders. But the big thing Mike included is all of the mayor and council's projects that we have completed this year. And if you have more detailed questions about these projects, we're happy to share more in the Q&A. Similarly, in facilities management, we share all of our work order data, including the number of work orders we completed here at City Hall. Two big improvements we made in this facility that you all occupy. We upgraded the transfer switch for the generator. So if the power were to go out, the generator will automatically click on. There won't be a lag there. And then we also replaced a bunch of windowsills that were rotting out, historic windowsills here on the first floor. We hope to do other floors here in this coming year. Dan, our fleet manager, was unable to join us today because of a family emergency. But one big thing I wanted to highlight in his metrics, we purchased 27 new vehicles this year. 16 of them were electric. So that's about 59% of our new vehicle purchases were electric. That brings our whole fleet to 43 electric vehicles of the total 425 that we have. So our entire fleet right now is about 10% electric. 59% of our new purchases last year were electric, and we're continuing to move in that direction, prioritizing electric vehicles all over all others where possible. I know we're also working with the fire and police departments this coming year to bolster their electric vehicle infrastructure, so then we can help them buy even more cruisers, fire trucks, and try to electrify their fleets. Lastly, in risk, Corey's area, he provided training, and then the security guards here at City Hall in Gorman were a big step in bolstering our physical security presence, and we're going to be doing more of that this coming year. Looking ahead to 26, Central Purchasing listed the upcoming projects that they hope to tackle right away in the coming fiscal year. And then another big flag for them is we're getting certification for our 2 buyers in Central Purchasing, which will help skill up that team and will hopefully help us push out even more work in the months to come. I would like to stop here to talk about facilities a little bit. Something we're very excited about is our new facility condition assessment, which Troy and Donovan have been leading. This is going to be a huge first step in bringing a vendor on board to look at all of our facilities and the systems in those facilities, top to bottom, roofs, HVAC systems, sprinklers, alarms, you name it. That will, well, when we get the final recommendations from the vendor, that will provide Central Services with a blueprint of big ticket capital improvement upgrades that we need to make to our facilities, the timing we can make those upgrades, which will help us come better organized to future budget years where we'll know, okay, here's what we can accomplish this coming year based on the assessment. These are the high priorities. So we'll request X, Y, Z in funding to knock this out and then have a longer outlook on what we're asking you, what it's contributing to, while making sure we're covering the easiest fixes we can as quickly as possible. We have a lot of deferred maintenance in our facilities, and once that's done, we'll have a fully fleshed plan for all of you. 2 big budget highlights that we're very grateful for in the facility space. Number 1 is $500,000 for capital projects, which we've been talking about. Donovan and Troy will work together to allocate that funding to bigger ticket, replace an HVAC system, go get a new roof. That money will help us do those types of things while our regular facility budget is fixing the everyday wear and tear that happens. The other thing that you're giving us is $101,000 for a real estate consultant. I've been asking a lot of real estate questions my first 2 weeks here, and I haven't fully thought out of what the scope of work for that consultant would be. But the 2 primary ideas are helping us create a land and building inventory that we know exactly what real estate we have in our holdings, in our portfolio, expiration on leases, deeds, tying all of that together. The other idea is if we can create that land and building inventory on our own, we could use the consultant to give us a strategic real estate plan and the best use and where to add facilities, offload rented or leased facilities. So we have more of a strategic vision for what's going to happen with all of our property in the future. Fleet is looking to maintain their systems next year, and risk management is going to continue bolstering cybersecurity and physical security. And then we're also exploring surety bonds for all those employees who handle cash and check. Going into performance metrics, the best news is at the top and the bottom of this little table here. Workers' comp claims were well under the benchmark. Corey's doing a great job there, and the lost time that we're tracking is also beneath the benchmark. So that's a home run. Also, on emergency roadside calls, our goal is to have under 250 in a year. Fleet operations had only 53 last year, so they're only averaging about 1 a week. I asked where the 250 came from, and it sounds like just a few years ago, we were averaging about 5 roadside calls a week. So that's a significant decrease from where we were a couple years ago. My primary focus this fiscal year is going to be the procurement cycle times, which is one of our performance metrics. In all of our conversations with the stakeholders that we serve, procurement has come up a lot, trying to get things through faster. And so that will be my primary focus in fiscal year 26. Work orders, we came in below our benchmark of 750, but I'll point out Troy has 3 vacancies on his team. So one thing we're focused on is filling those vacant roles, which will help us drastically increase the number of work orders we can put out. That 550 that we have accomplished this year was accomplished with about 2.5 employees because we just hired a new one. So we're confident in years to come, we'll be able to complete far more work orders when we're fully staffed. Similarly, in terms of our vehicle age, our fleet is aging a little bit. I think Dan would say that a lot of that is based on the replacement budget. We could replace everything tomorrow if the funding was available. but I will hand it to fleet operations. They're doing a great job of maintaining that aging fleet, and we're not having massive failures. We're not having a huge boost in emergency roadside calls, which tells us that, hey, you know, we're failing to maintain these vehicles. They're breaking down and leaving people stranded. So our fleet is getting older. The replacement budget is helping us balance that, and we're just going to continue on that path. And in years to come, we'll continue asking for a larger replacement budget. EVs, I'll point out, are also generally more expensive. So the more EVs we purchase, generally the bigger chunk that's going to take from our replacement budget. And then lastly, you'll see in maintenance, our goal is to maintain all of our vehicles about twice a year. We're only doing that about once a year right now, and we could do better. Dan tells me he believes that's really based on the tech efficiency time, as he says it. Our techs are often running back and forth, delivering vehicles, going to pick up new parts. And in every moment, they're not in the garage working on a vehicle. We're losing time, and we're losing the ability to do even more PMs. So Dan also has some vacancies in fleet operations. We are going to fill those, and hopefully that'll help keep our techs working on vehicles, and that number should continue to go up in the future. Lastly, the one thing I wanted to share with you before we departed today is my vision, kind of where we would like to go short and long term next year. I've talked a little bit about our personnel gaps, and we're going to address those as quickly as possible. We have 3 in facilities management. You all, thank you, have given fleet operations a new analyst position, which we're going to fill as soon as we can, and that's going to help improve some of that tech efficiency I mentioned a moment ago. And then also thank you for sending us Eric, Donovan, and Corey, who will be joining the team in the new fiscal year, moving with us out to Shaw, and they'll be able to support all of Central Services operations in the future. Short-term goals, we're relocating central purchasing out of 161. We're aiming to do that by September. We also hope to get the whole Central Services team and the finance team over to 25 Shaw Street as soon as humanly possible. We need to install new fuel tanks out at the Spa Road fuel depot, for lack of a better word. And then once we're fully staffed, we need to take all the Central Services job functions away from Public Works. I don't think finance has anything left, but Public Works is helping us in a number of areas, and we want to bring all that in-house eventually also. And then all of us are committed to helping you and the mayor achieve all of your goals and objectives between now and the end of the administration. And that's going to be our number one focus. Longer term, I would like to create a mission vision, update the website, and take a fresh look at performance metrics for Central Services. And then kind of some of the things I teased today, but that I'm looking forward to getting more hands-on with risk mitigation, security assessments, and training. Corey and I have talked about that a lot. How often do we do fire drills? What do our evacuation procedures look like? When were our fire extinguishers last checked? These are all things we want to look at, make sure we're in compliance and doing everything we possibly can to keep all of those who occupy our facilities safe. We also want to kind of take a fresh look at, I call it a facility and equipment use policy. I don't know if that's a real name or not, but it's crazy when working with Troy, looking at our work orders, how many of those were caused by our own employees damaging the facilities we occupy. So we'd like to get that under control, maybe build some policies or standards, and, you know, don't put duct tape on the walls so when you tear it off, it takes the paint with it and we have to come out and do it again, like that kind of stuff. So we'd like to kind of take a look at the city's policies, try to push that out, get everyone to comply with that. And then from there, once we have our assessment completed, we'll have more of a strategic deferred maintenance plan. Here are our long-term projects. Here are the facilities with aging infrastructure that we need to immediately address. And we'll have a very targeted strategic plan for all of you to weigh in on, and we'll use that then to base all of our future budget asks on. Similarly, in real estate, I mentioned a need for land and building inventory. I would also like a strategic real estate plan, so we all kind of know which direction we're heading in with all the properties we own. And then I think there's also perhaps an opportunity to create space standards. How big of an office should a director get? Or do staff need offices? Should we take advantage of hoteling work sites, that sort of thing? For central purchasing, two big things I listed out are customer service transformation, making sure we're meeting our customers where they are and serving all of their needs as effectively as possible. And in talking with Mike, I think a big opportunity where we could do better in central purchasing is helping to train all of our internal departments and all of the vendor community how to use some of our self-service portals. There's a lot of things folks can easily and quickly do on their own without adding a to-do item on central purchasing's list every day. So I think if we take a more active role in training them and building the skills we want them to have, then they also don't need to wait on us to help them with quite as much. Perfect. That was everything. So thank you so much for my presentation. Again, it's an honor to be here in front of you all today. And now myself and all of these gentlemen are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you guys being here. And yeah, you did come in 1 minute under, which I think we started at 1 minute late. So I'll call that spot on.
Right.
I'm going to ask you just one question. I got a lot. I'm very excited about this department, but I'm going to ask you just one question, then turn it to Alderwoman O'Neill. You talked at one point about sending our central purchasing buyers to obtain Maryland procurement certifications, right? That's something that's hopefully going to happen this year. Why? Maryland's procurement is terrible. The state of Maryland's procurement is a gigantic mess. I worry that they're going to learn bad habits. Can we send them to get Pennsylvania's procurement certification?
Here,
So I'd love to get some justification for that.
Mike can answer that one.
Mike Garasha, procurement officer. Each state has what they call a policy.
Yeah.
And basically, I work in the federal government. I've worked in different aspects with Capital One to Cafe Banks. I basically procured all those. I found some things that Capital One was doing differently, and we sat down the team. I had 9 lawyers. I'd worked with the executive vice presidents, you with the CEO, and they were doing things that said, guys, you can't do that. Well, why not? Well, you have the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. You have the Money Laundering Acts, the Patriot Act. I said, what you're doing now, somebody's going to come in here and say, hey, this is not the way to do this thing. And even though those guys were basically certified in the banking industry, they were doing stuff wrong. There's always improvement in procurement right now. I don't know. NIGP does procurement training. Maryland does training. I got my certifications in Virginia. There's things in Virginia that I changed around. I worked in higher education, I changed around. And yes, it does help to have those certifications. That's why I want these girls to get their certifications first before they start doing what I do right now. If I took that test now in Maryland, I'd flunk it because I don't agree with what they're doing right now. I don't agree with a lot of stuff the city's doing right now. And I've told me and the mayor talked about it quite a bit. And it's, we've basically worked things out. I've talked to Matt about things we don't do. But they need this that behind their name to get a little more credibility. It's because I got a degree as me, I'm the smartest person in the world. It only gives you that little bit more effort to go forward with it. So they do need this certification right there.
Okay, thank you. So just to put a fine point on this, is it a legal requirement?
Mike Garasha, procurement officer. No, it's not a legal requirement.
Okay.
But I think it's good to have that behind your name there because people look at that and recognize it right there.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll turn it to Alderwoman O'Neill.
Great, thank you very much. Just a couple of questions. First of all, when you say you want to improve customer service, I love that. That's what I've been asking for, and that's what a lot of our residents are asking for. So thank you for making that one of your goals. I have a question about budget highlights. This includes funding for concierge, and I don't know if you talked about that in your presentation, but can you tell me what the concierge position would be doing?
Sure. That's Eric Beavers. Thank you. That's Eric Beavers' position. And so he's currently, as I understand it, working here in City Hall, helping direct traffic. I know he's helping Troy with some small facility improvements. I hear he helps with mail distribution. So he's going to be joining the central services team. I'm still exploring what job functions he will officially take over, but the intention is to have him move out with us at Shaw. He can potentially support work orders, going around our different facilities, making sure we don't have paint chipping off of walls, making sure, if we have a neon stripping on stairs, so no trip or fall hazard. So the thought is Eric could be our eyes and ears in the city, go to different job sites or projects. He could also continue to support mail distribution. And then I'm also hoping to better understand if there are more administrative tasks or kind of other ways he can help free up time for this group, and just hopefully stay busier and stay productive throughout the day.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then I know that there's been discussion about including funding to advance capital projects. Do you have a list of specific capital projects that will be advanced, and what do you see in advancing those? Like, how are they going to be advanced?
Troy and Donovan, I'll let you guys answer in more detail, but I do know that that facility condition assessment is going to provide a lot of that overall blueprint and just what are those needs, what might they cost, and then from there we can prioritize things. But Donovan, Troy, do you want to answer in more detail?
Sure. My name's Donovan Harold, project manager for city-owned facilities. Right now, there's a $700,000 budget for city-owned facility improvements. The additional $500 to advance capital projects would be used for unforeseen projects and projects that we're see coming from our facility condition assessment. For instance, right now, the $700,000 that I get for city facility improvements the projects are already listed out for that money. Whenever we have an emergency, like we had emergency for Pip Moyer Recreation Center to replace rooftop units, priced probably at $200,000, there was no money available for that. So we had to wait to get additional funding to get that project completed. This money would already be there for us, and we can move right in and take care of those types of emergencies. Right now, Department of Transportation is in need of a new HVAC system, as well as a new fire panel and fire alarm system. That money is not accounted for in any city facility improvement funding. So this money would be able to take care of those types of projects.
So we don't have a current list of specific projects, but it's a fund for emergency projects?
That's how I see it, and these projects come up every year.
Okay. Thank you.
You have anything else to add, Troy?
Well, there's Troy Naylor Facilities. So two of the projects he just mentioned, the ADOT or our DOT, they do not right now have functioning air conditioning. So that to me is an emergency. Their fire alarm system is not functioning. It's not that it needs it. It has to be done. So this is funding that would support that as of now, right away.
Okay. And does the 700,000 cover that?
No, those projects that Donovan has for that money's allocated to has already been
Yeah, there's a list of projects for the $700,000 that we already have accounted for.
Okay. So then the $500,000, will that cover the emergencies?
Yes, correct. Yes. So when he came up with projects for the 700 that was already allocated, this came up after that. So this is like, and I can guarantee we're coming into HVAC cooling season. We're going to have many more things that fail. Which when we finally get our facility condition assessment in, like Matt and Donovan were talking, that will give you a full blueprint of where we stand in each building, age of pieces of equipment, whether they're getting ready to fail or whether we have 10 years left on them. But every piece of equipment that the city owns will be listed out from roof to foundation, their condition, the cost of what it would cost today to fix. So that way we're not running behind the 8 ball anymore. Every year we can say, okay, well, this was listed out. Now we can move forward and try to procure funding for moving forward.
Okay. So this $500,000 is not going to be approved until July 1, technically, or be available until July 1. And it's already partially spent. Should we not be looking at additional funding? I'm not trying to give away funds, but at the same time, if it's already spent and the budget hasn't even been approved yet, where are we going to come up with additional funds if something besides Department of Transportation needs HPAs?
I guess we'll just have to do what we've done in the previous years, come ask the council for money to fix those emergencies for now.
Okay.
And I think I see the acting city manager. Yeah.
Yeah, Vicki Buckland, acting city manager. And I think to your question, I think that underscores the importance of the condition assessment, being able to really have a good handle on, where is everything, because you do want to be able to plan out, a bit better of what are we expecting, rather than, well, maybe this will happen. We want a little bit of cushion in case it does. So being able to be a little bit more intentional, I think, kind of underscores the importance of getting that particular piece of work done.
Mike, let me add something, Mike Grossi, procurement officer. This is an emergency. So basically, we do have an emergency procurement procedure. This will not require us to be going out for solicitation for bids. This would, we have a procedure. Once they get the emergency procurement, we'll go ahead and initially get a firm in to design it and go right into construction phase services. This should not be this. I work at facilities. This is ridiculous. I'm going to tell you right now. But we will, from a procurement standpoint, drop everything and make sure the procurement goes through. I will sign a justification form and move forward with it. But I do need the money, number one, the money encumbered. And number two, I will need a quote on that before we go forward with it.
Okay. I appreciate that. I guess I'm worried we're trying to put out a fire with too short of a hose, is what it sounds like. So I'm looking forward to that assessment. Is that something you're working on?
I'm always trying to put fires out with too short of a hose, and that's what we're trying. We're trying to move into being a proactive entity instead of a retroactive entity. Where because no one sees what I see behind, like you go down into these equipment rooms and stuff like that. I mean, they're just, nobody sees that. They just know that, hey, it's cold, it's hot, I'm too cold, I'm too hot. Nobody sees the conditions of this stuff. So this will actually make it more understandable to people that are not, knowledgeable about mechanical systems. But I'm not trying to say one person is smarter than the other. It's just this is the field that I work in, and not everybody. Nobody ever see it. You see a window, you see a wall, you see paint. You just don't see the mechanical systems that have been just neglected for so many years, and they're just not necessarily neglected, but they're just into service life. You get 30, 40, 50-year-old equipment that just says, I'm tired, I'm done working. And you can't get parts for them anymore. So there's no really way without this facility condition assessment to put forth the information to where everybody can understand. And it's going to fail. The money will be used for these purposes, but I can't just say, okay, this is the project I want to do with that money right now. Because I have stuff that's ticking time bomb. So with this money being there, when that emergency arises, we have the money. We don't have to come. And if it doesn't get used for that, I'm sure that y'all get you get it back at the end of the year to allocate to something else.
Well, if I can,
I appreciate that.
My promise to you all, and I was really surprised when I got here that we don't have what I would call a deferred maintenance plan. We aren't looking at, hey, when we know this HVAC system is a 30-year system, we got 5 years left. So we know in 4 years we need to ask for the budget, and then we need to be ready to replace it. That's what I would like to get us to. So after we get this assessment, after we all sit down and look at short and long term, I'd like to provide you all with a 5-10 year plan, a flexible plan, nothing set in stone. But then should something new break, we can say, okay, well, we'll slot that into next year. That'll bump everything down one notch, but we'll all be working together to know when systems will be replaced, make sure we have enough funding available to replace those aging systems. We're being strategic in when we're asking and what we're asking for, so we know it's tied to specific goals that we have.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Alderwoman Finlayson, I'll turn it to you, but I will let you know I have quite a few questions. You
So
want?
does that mean I shouldn't
ask
ask my question because you have quite a few questions?
Well, I'm just saying,
I don't-
let's make sure we balance our time.
I will make sure. Just to kind of piggyback on the questions Alderwoman O'Neill's been asking, I think the message I'd like to send is we're supportive of whatever you need. You should have a contingency fund for emergencies because, as you said, our buildings are old and, they're going to break down. And unfortunately, our employees have been working in substandard conditions in many cases. For transportation to not have any heat is just untenable to me, that we haven't immediately stepped up and fixed that problem. And so I'm inviting you to come to us and keep us aware of what you need, and not after the fact, not reactive, as you said, but being proactive, because we know it'll benefit everyone if we get ahead of these problems. And it'll save us some money probably if we get ahead of these problems. So we really do need to listen to you. And Ms. Buckland, I'm asking to give us that opportunity to hear from them, not just at budget time. And your contingency plan shouldn't take a year to create. On the surface, it shouldn't take a year, because then we're already a year behind where we are today. So please don't hesitate to make us aware of what you need so that we can make proper arrangements to get you the funding. We can fund everything else that we need. Our buildings are where our employees live, and they should be good environments. We say people love to work in the city, but they love to work in good conditions in the city. We have our complaints here. We have a little heater under the desk because it's too cold, and that kind of thing. But now I feel like we have a place to go to get help. So anyway, that's my invitation to you. On staffing, and I had a question about the concierge service, which I think is great. Will the concierge service include all of our buildings, or just here in Shaw Street?
I haven't fully assessed that yet.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, Eric's current title is, I believe, City Hall concierge. So I just borrowed his current title. I don't know that would still be his title, but ideally, yes. I would like to give him a role, give him clear lines of responsibility, and then send him out to go do that. And if it's drop by every facility and say, hey, or deliver mail, or make sure everything's going okay, I think that's a great opportunity. So it's all on the table right now if you have ideas or suggestions.
I think every department should have a concierge service, to be honest with you. I think everyone should have a, what do you call it when you have someone greeting? We used to have a person in every department until, what is it?
Like a maitre d'.
Well, maitre d', but just like an admin person who would answer the phone, be there to greet visitors and answer questions and that kind of thing. And we cut out all of those positions back in 2008 and 2009 when we had the budget crunch. And we've never restored those positions. So I think, and Mr. Fleiner, you could encourage other departments to think about their concierge service. I think that would benefit everybody in the city. Where's your garage?
That's out at 39 Hudson Street, where most of us are located.
So you're in Public Works. Are you in Transportation or Spa Road or?
We have our facility garage is attached to Public Works office. So we have a brand new state of the art multi-bay garage there where we service every vehicle in our fleet.
So you're in the Public Works building out on Hudson Street.
Mhm.
And is that where you're going to remain?
Fleet operations and replacement will remain out there, but the plan, based on what I've last heard, was to move this whole team out to 25 Shaw. Once we replace the roof, we get the elevators fixed, get the HVAC system addressed. The plan is to move all of central services, including central purchasing and 161, out to Shaw Street with finance, and then we'll all be together with the exception of fleet that will stay in that new garage facility out at Hudson.
Okay, so the fleet will remain out on Hudson Street. And all of fleet will be on Hudson Street?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I just like to make sure everybody's got a place, got a home, and a good home. Your staffing. Have all of your staff members come from different departments, or have you done some new hires? I see your numbers have gone up by 3. And this isn't being critical. I'm just interested in knowing, are you hiring more people, or are you adding more positions, or?
I haven't officially posted any positions yet. I think the first ones we do post will be those facilities positions. I believe the 3 you're seeing are the concierge role, Donovan's civil engineer role, and Corey's risk management, risk analyst role. Corey's joining us from finance, is where risk is currently centralized. Donovan's joining us from Public Works, and Eric's joining us from the City Hall side.
I would just actually note the City Hall concierge is not one of those 3. That's recorded as something that was already.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was the fleet analyst was the third
Yeah.
one. My apologies. Yeah, and that's the new position for Dan that we hope to fill as soon as the budget's approved. So I think we're going to be posting 3 relatively soon for facilities. We'll be posting 1 for fleet, July timeframe. And then we're going to be kind of, once we fill those vacancies, we're going to be assessing who we have, what are job functions, and try to reshuffle, and then perhaps asking for other positions next year.
Well, you're a new department. I was here when we had the old central services. But in all honesty, I don't remember everything that, I know what they did, but I don't remember all the people who were positions that they had. But I would like to make sure that you have all the positions you want now, that you need as a new department. So, and so that was my question, just to make sure that you are getting the additional staff. We tend to create departments, and we don't always give you the resources you need to fulfill the mission for that department. So want to make sure that's not the problem. And I think that my last question, any unfunded requests, any enhancements that you made a request for and that was not fulfilled?
I welcome any of you to speak up if you're aware of anything. I'm not. The biggest thing I've heard is from Dan in fleet replacement. I don't recall the actual numbers, but I believe he did ask for more fleet replacement budget than what was actually granted. And I think on our slide, he just flagged that, the age of our fleet is really tied to that, because that tells him how many new vehicles he can buy each year. So that's something that we're welcome to revisit in the future. But I mean, it's enough to help us replace aging vehicles, go out and get new EVs, so we can operate with that fine. I just don't think it's as much as we would have liked.
Well, I noticed the police fleet is in a good place, because several years ago we drastically increased the fleet, because one of the negotiated agreements was take-home cars. So we increased the fleet. So maybe we need to revisit in the same fashion, increasing the fleets in the other departments.
After budget hearings end, I hope to meet all my directors and ask about any unmet needs that they have. And if there are vehicle needs, then we'll come to you all next year, clearly communicate that, and tell you what the quote might be, so we can make that request.
Well, that was my last question, comment. Thank you all for creating anew in the city.
That's beautiful. I would echo that. Yeah. I've got some big questions, some little questions. I'm going to start with the little ones, and I hope you guys can give me some fairly rapid fire answers on these, okay? Why, when you talk about Amazon purchases, are those getting done by your staff? I've seen like IT, they bought me my cover for my iPad. So under what circumstances does something that's going to need to get bought on Amazon get sent over to you guys to purchase as opposed to just having someone in that department purchase it?
Mike Grosser, procurement officer. Our policy now, anything under $10,000, I don't see it. It goes automatically goes to PO. Anything above 10,000 and below 100,000 or less, I need 3 quotes. If I don't get 3 quotes to demonstrate that there, I do not. I've trained the police department, and also trained OEM on here's what we need to do, and also trained the fire department. And they basically one of my bigger customers we work with there. The problem is these policies people don't read. Another thing too is we have issues with is that we're doing a lot of stuff that can be done manually right now. It's like these vendor applications. We probably get 20, 30 vendor applications a day. And we got to go through the system and put them in there. These can be done manually. This can be done automatically. Oh, we can't do that. We can do it because I've done it before with Oracle. There's a lot of things we can do. We just don't want to do it. It's not that you can't do it. You just don't want to do it there. Stuffing checks. I get 5 calls a day. Where's my check at? Now, what in the world is going on? I was told when Joy was there, she said, well, Mike, you look into this. Well, I did. And it's not me to direct people to go and do their jobs right there. Right now, we just need to run one test on our platform. The Wells Fargo, we can get this automatic clearinghouse completed and done. And you can test that also. What have we done with that? Nothing. I mean, stuff like that. I've got 2 people right now. Basically, they're every day working with purchase orders. People put wrong purchase orders in. This is wrong. We got to do vendor applications. And they're working basically 8, 9, 10 hours a day to get this stuff done. And sometimes I got to jump in and do it, which I don't mind doing the work right there. But there's a lot of things we can do a lot differently.
Sure. I see the acting city manager wants to.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on a couple of those points that Mike raised. So what he's referring to are a couple of projects that have been being worked on within the Department of Finance. Brittany has inherited those 2 efforts. And certainly she and I have spoken about the importance of getting them across the finish line. What Mike's referring to are 2 separate projects. The first of which is related to the P-card system that the city uses. There has been an effort underway for a while to change P-card vendors to a vendor that interfaces more seamlessly with the city's financial system. What he's referring to in terms of putting vendors in the system is an artifact of a limitation of our current P-card vendor. So the goal is to change P-card vendors with one that works with us better, frankly. And there's a bunch of work that simply goes away, which would be lovely all the way around. The second thing he's referring to is an effort with the city's banking relationship to fully implement a full ACH payments process so that payments are issued electronically rather than manually. And there has been a significant amount of back and forth between us and Wells Fargo. That goal line appears to have shifted a couple of times, which has been pretty frustrating. But again, both of those, trying to get those across the finish line because both of them have the potential to save a lot of time, and also, frankly, make it easier for staff to do those services and easier for vendors to have a relationship with us. So both of them are pretty important. They're kind of down in the weeds a little bit, but they have a lot of implications for how it looks and feels to interact with us. Is that fair?
I just was going to add that I actually met with Wells Fargo last week as well. And this is a concern for finance, and it's going to come up in the finance department's presentation also. We have a backlog in AP. We are sending out 500 manual checks average a month, which means finance is actually stuffing them and sending them. And we don't have the manpower for that either. This also is a question of risk management. Sure, Corey can speak on with mail fraud and just tracking of payments in general, and that we really do need to work with IT and bringing in Vicky into this, and we've already spoken on it, on making this a priority because it is impacting finance directly as well. So you are not alone in that.
Well, I hope the rest of my easy questions are easier than that one. So I'm still unclear. There were 695 Amazon purchases. How many of those did central purchasing buy?
Mike Russia, every one of them. Everything you guys buy, I see it. It comes on my screen. I
Okay.
save all the purchase orders. I save everything. And basically, I track it because I want to make sure we're only limited to go up to $10,000 in purchase orders. Otherwise, we got to go get 3 quotes. So basically, if an order comes in, they're going to say, okay, hey, you got a purchase order here for $30,000. Where's the quotes at?
Got it. Okay.
So that's what because everything we do, I see it.
Got it. So when Brian in IT bought my $30, I don't know, $5 iPad case, that's he's clicking the buy. He doesn't have to do any more work, but it routes through your
If
department.
I should be, I
Thank you.
keep every
That's
purchase,
what I need
every
to know.
purchase order you do. I see it. I keep a database of it. Yes, sir.
Got it. Great. You talked about hybrids and 16 cars getting bought being hybrids. Sorry, you said electric at the time. Presentation says hybrids. Are these plug-in hybrids or just like a Prius?
Let me pull it up. Sorry. Let me pull it up to make sure I'm quoting it right. There it is. So the 2 SUVs are electric Blazers. They are plug-in, but all electric. The police cruisers, 10 of those that we purchased are hybrid. And then he also purchased 4 hybrid Mavericks. Dan
but
communicated
My
to me.
question is, when you say hybrid, do you mean a plug-in hybrid or just like it recharges the battery but you still have to use gas?
The latter is my understanding.
Okay, thank you. You were going to say the same thing? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Planning and Zoning Department came before us a little while ago. They requested an enhancement for painting in their building. I think we were all very supportive of that, having seen it. But I'd love to hear, and maybe this is really more a question for the city manager. Maybe it's better to have us one level up. Why should that funding, which is ultimately for a facilities upgrade, be under the Planning and Zoning Department of the budget, or should it be under the Central Services Department of the budget?
Just speaking for myself, my personal preference is for that to be part of the central services budget, particularly just given how the budget mechanically works within the city where everything's very locked down. Let's say for the sake of argument, planning and zoning either didn't end up needing all of that or ended up needing more of that. The process of doing like supplemental and transfers can be onerous.
Oh yeah. We know.
And my preference is to have that money be within central services control, where they can also then maximize its use.
Excellent. Ms. Jackson, would you just make a note of that we might want to move that?
And can I add a footnote to that? In my short time here, it seems like we are very decentralized, and maybe prior to central services existing on its own, every department approached these problems independently. But in talking to the team, I think we all have a desire to kind of centralize this, bring it all in-house. I asked a question my first week, who's responsible for mowing lawns? And it's like 7 different entities, depending on where, when, how, why. So I would just like to get all that under control. You know, we might even look to hire a painter if we have full-time enough work to keep one person employed painting all the time, or bringing everyone under our contract. So I think that's a big opportunity for us to kind of step up, take ownership from some of these departments and lead this work that we're responsible for.
You know, I think it might have been Alderman Arnett and I had a conversation about exactly that question a couple weeks ago, trying to figure out who's doing the landscaping in different places, who's cutting the grass.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair,
Yes.
the painting is, just to be clear, the painting is not included in planning and zoning's budget. They requested it, and we said, no, it's better served under central services or to look at, but it's not included in their budget.
Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you. I misunderstood that from their presentation. Hey, glad to hear it. You guys are already solving problems. Moving on to some of the bigger questions. We just heard from OEM, and we heard it from IT, certainly. 3 different departments talking about cybersecurity. Could you describe where you think and actually maybe I'll make this into a bigger question because I had this for risk management generally. So smaller question is, where is the boundary of your cybersecurity work? At which point you would say, no, this is IT's job. Let me leave it to them. And then more broadly, could you describe the parameters of the risk management work?
Corey Bradley, Risk Management Administrator. So cybersecurity, very broad, right? It'll encompass a lot of different departments. I think first and foremost, my responsibility would be procuring insurance for that. So we currently do have a cybersecurity policy. I do plan on this year bolstering that to increase to meet the demands. In procuring cybersecurity, we use a vendor. That vendor helps put together, I'll say similar to a COOP plan that OEM uses. They put together action steps for how we respond to a cyber event. They will instruct us which key players need to be involved, such as the Office of Law, MIT, OEM. So I think, did that answer your question or?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. I think let's keep moving. One other easy one. The security guards, is that just at City Hall?
No, currently we have 2 armed guards, one at City Hall, one at Gorman Street. We're budgeting for a third in FY26. That'll go to Shaw Street. We're budgeting for 3.5. So there'll be 1 armed guard at each of those 3 facilities, and then that half guard works a 4-hour day, and they'll do the swing shift to cover breaks because currently they're covering their own breaks. So as we bolster it more, they'll be, like I said, 3.5 guards for FY26.
Thank you. Last question for me then, for now, I'll probably send you some more afterwards, is the one of your benchmarks that I noticed was not on track to be met in FY25 was the RFP, which is we hope to have met in 120 days, and we're on track for to be 180. Why do you all think that is?
Mike Gross, procurement officer. An RFP is a little bit different than an IFP.
Sure.
With an RFP, you don't know what you want. Now, with an RFP, Troy and Dom and I are working on 2 right now. We're getting ready to go into round 3. If I get 3 proposals, okay, it takes maybe 2 weeks to look at it. If I get 10 proposals, it's going to take these guys a month to look at it. The gold standard for an RFP is 180 days, right there. You can, now, some I can do in 100 days if I want to get 1 proposal in. We don't need to do interviews. With RFPs, you have 3 rounds. You have round 1, you do the short list. Round 2, interviews. Round 3, best and finals. Round 2, I'll give you an example with the ferry boat right there. It took us basically past the 180 days because there was issues with getting the committee together. The ferry boat was a very complicated RFP to do. Now we're kind of in a hold pattern. I have no funding commitments. The state said we're putting you on hold right now. And I won't go any further than that right now, but we did do the short list. We're up to round 3 now. We're ready to award right now the ferry boat, but I can't. That's all I'm going to say about it right there. I can't go into more detail on that right there. But it does take time to do an RFP. These are very, very complicated issues. An IFB is very simple. You get your bids in, I get a memorandum back, and I award the project. RFPs, we're still right now, we're on round 3 for 2 of these right now. We got on the street. One's for the roof and one's for the FICA study. And these do take time. Troy's busy all the time right now. You heard he's busy. He's chasing his tail right now. Dom is the only one doing facilities right now. And him and I have done how many together, Dom? It took us long. We've done quite a few together. Yeah. These things do take, and he can test, these things take time, bro.
No, I'll say, I think I've told you, Mr. Rogers, that, some of what I do in my professional job is around procurement and helping governments improve their procurement. And I know the issue is not the procurement staff don't work hard enough. The issue is that we layer on too many not even silly necessarily. Sometimes it's too many things that you have to do, which each individually sound fine typically, and then I give you 100 of them, and no wonder you can't get it done in 120 days. So I hear you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Alderman Arnett, did you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. They're mainly focused on risk management. I have a question about the level of stop-loss insurance we have. I think it's $1 million aggregate or specific that kicks in after $1 million, but that's just me trying to recollect. But I guess my principal concern is I don't think $1 million of stop loss insurance, given some of the liabilities we face, lawsuits and things like that, is anywhere near adequate. So I'm wondering, can you just tell me what we do have for stop loss insurance and whether you think we have enough?
Sure. Corey Bradley, Risk Management
Corey,
Administrator.
can I ask you one other question? That can you define stop loss insurance at the beginning of your question or
So
answer?
I don't know that maybe him and I are not using the same insurance terms for what you're asking about stop loss insurance. We have an excess carrier. Our excess carrier is legit. So the city is self-insured we cover the first $1 million. Legit kicks in over $1 million, but they cap at $5 million.
5.
So if, individual or business X gets awarded 10 million, we're going to pay 6 of that. My math's right. Yep. We're going to pay 6 of that. I think it's been adequate in years past. Up until I'd say the last 3 years is when we've seen general liability suits that exceed that. Right. And the Office of Law has done a great job mitigating that, and we've always been with under. I think if anyone wants to sit down and have a discussion about having another excess policy over that 5 million, I welcome that. Unfortunately, Legit does not offer that. We'll have to go. I've got brokers that I work with. We'll have to put that out to the brokerage firms to have them secure, and then we would come back and look at that. Hopefully, that answers your question.
It does, and the stop loss insurance is both specific and aggregate.
Correct.
Okay, so that is good coverage. I guess we would really need to discuss with the city manager, the finance director, but I know we have had in the past several multi-million-dollar lawsuits hanging over our head. I think 1 or 2 of them have been disposed of, but there's still another big one, I think, outstanding. And then my next question is somewhat, go ahead.
Without going into specifics in this open session, for the types of suits that we have seen that are multi-million-dollar, our excess policy wouldn't kick in for because of exclusions. And I don't think for some of those types of claims, obviously you can always find insurance. What are you going to pay? I think you're going to find it's going to be extremely difficult in the market to find someone that's going to want to pick up the types of claims that we're seeing. But again, we welcome the discussion. If it's something we want to look into, I'll gladly speak to underwriters and see what we can put together. But like I said, the policies the suits that you're speaking of, our excess carrier has already denied those claims because of the types of suits that are coming in.
So that's good to know. I had the impression that additional coverage is not particularly expensive, but my information on this is dated, probably 25 years old. So that may well be the consideration. In a risk situation that I think we have ongoing, which is the toxic materials at Spa Road, and I think that affects DPW and also the Choice Neighborhood Program. But I'm wondering what your involvement is in looking at that and what kinds of liabilities we have potentially from that.
So I'm not sure what specifically you're speaking about Spa Road. Are we talking about the fuel tanks?
No, talking about the fly ash, all of the materials from the incinerator.
Okay.
And we're dealing with it both on the playing fields, but also we're considering in the Choice Neighborhood Program putting housing. And I know that there's been some second round of soil sampling, but I guess I'm kind of wondering if there isn't a miscommunication here that I would think as risk manager, you would be involved in those discussions.
So I will tell you, I haven't been brought into that discussion. The city does have a pollution policy and it is limited to the fuel tanks on Spa Road. And that's what I thought you were
Right.
originally speaking about. But anything outside of the fields or anything, I have not been in any discussions with.
So I can shed a little bit of light, as I think we had mentioned this before. There is funding that's applicable to brownfields restoration, and the city has started some conversations with the Resilience Authority about what kinds of arrangements we would need to make to have that funding be available. Obviously, before anything could be built on that site, the site would have to get cleared. It would have to be sufficiently remediated to build anything at all. So that's definitely a multi-step, multi-year process. But those conversations with the Resilience Authority have begun, and that's something that we can certainly talk about more.
Well, I'm really feeling somewhat urgent because there's also a toxic situation in the Eastport Shopping Center. And I'm wondering if there's citywide communications going on. I understand that the owner is thinking that they're going to start redeveloping the shopping center within the year. And I'm wondering if there isn't a strategic list of toxic areas in the city. And I do think that they're very germane to managing risk. That may not be the only department involved, but these are people's lives kinds of issues. We're talking about apartment space in the shopping center. So
Yeah. Alderman, I think this is an important line of questioning. I think we can do it some more offline and have the city manager come back. Alderwoman Finlayson has one question, and then we are supposed to wrap up.
It is about security. Oh, I'm sorry. Security leaves at 4:00 or 4:30. And there's lots of activity going on in this building much later than that. And even for our council meetings, police are here for us as our security. Is there an interest in protecting our buildings and our folks that are using our buildings, our director, everybody, residents who come in for meetings and staff who are working?
I'll let Corey answer in detail, but I asked very similar questions, much like my grounds, who's responsible for upkeeping our grounds questions. And I think we have opportunities to reassess our posture and the hours and all of that to keep our employees and visitors safe. Corey, anything to add?
Yeah. So as we discussed, we have a new guard contract we awarded, I believe, back in February. So it's a new company. The way they're currently budgeted is for, I believe, an 8.5 or 9 hour day. So the security guards come in typically 8 a.m. They inspect the building, make sure there's no one here that shouldn't be here. Facilities open, the doors automatically unlock at 8:30. The guard is in place. They operate the metal detector. They record who's coming in and out. The facility automatically locks at 4:30. And then about 4:45, the guard does a final inspection. My understanding, and I could be wrong, was that the council chose to continue to use police department for council hearings. We would gladly have discussions about moving that to the armed guard, which would be cheaper in the long run for the city because you're not paying overtime and such. But that's between the city manager's office, Mr. Flinner, and the council. This guard company is great. They're looking to expand. They do quite a lot of work in the city of Annapolis. Female owned, minority owned, and they want the business. Currently in discussions with Parks and Rec to do weekend security at the pools. So, like I said, we're open to having those discussions.
Well, I think we're talking two different things. When we talk about the police being here, I don't think we haven't recently had a discussion about use of police, but the need arose when there were attacks on public facilities and staff like councils Board of Eds was the one I think that really triggered us getting security. So, and we're very comfortable with them being here. My question really was about security, period. You know, when we have work sessions on Thursdays from 3 to 5, security goes home at 4:30. You know, so who protect, anybody could come into the building. I don't know how it works when, you know, after hours, but, you know, I would just think that, well, I guess, is there a way to either adjust the hours, increase the hours based upon the programs that are going on here? When we have work sessions, then security should be here until 6 o'clock or whenever we finish. But what about the committees that meet in the evenings? Do we not deserve protection during those times also?
No, you guys definitely do. And it should be noted with and put together a security assessment about 3 years ago, and it piggybacked on one that the police department put together pre-COVID, I'll say 6 or 7 years ago, asking for security enhancements. Thus, you know, you guys see the metal detectors and some of the other things that we've done in and around the facilities. I noted, as well as the police department, if you're going to, you know, bolster security, you have to do it 100% of the time, right? You can't just have metal detectors during opening operation hours and then at nighttime for security council meetings, just allow anyone to walk in. So it's been discussed. I think looking at it now, if we're going to start adding security, changing the hours, I still would like them to be here for the opening. Matt and I can discuss offline after this about extending, getting a schedule for when you guys are having your committee meetings and communicating that in advance so that the guards and the guard company knows. Currently, I will tell you personally, I don't know, outside of the council meetings I follow, I don't know when all the council meetings are, but I think this is a easy fix and we can probably do something in the next week or so.
Well, thank you. I hope it's an easy fix. And, you know, it's just like notifying the TV crew that we're going to have a meeting. And I guess you guys could be notified at the same time. You know, it could be, like I said, hopefully an easy fix. So thank you, all of you again.
All right. Is there a motion for the Finance Committee to stand in recess until 12:15?
Push for recess.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks for being here, folks. All right. Meeting of the Finance Standing Committee is called to order at 12:19 p.m. on April 28th, 2025.
Okay, I know.
Reconvened. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'll introduce my command staff, or I'll have them introduce themselves in the spirit of brevity, so we can move forward. So we'll start.
Stan Bradford, Deputy Chief of Annapolis Police.
You got to be on a mic.
Had to be on the mic. Good morning, Stan Bradford, Deputy Chief, Annapolis Police Department.
Good morning, Lakeisha Blue, Director of Internal Affairs.
Good afternoon, Lamar Howard, Operations Commander.
Good afternoon, Guy Thacker, Patrol Commander.
Thank you very much. Oh, we need him.
And Captain Amy Miguel, I'm the Administrative Commander.
And I'm Craig Medley, the Police Accounting and Administrative Manager.
Thank you very much. Chief, I'm just going to warn you, we got you on a 15-minute timer. So I see you guys got a lot of slides here, so I want you to make sure you know that in advance.
Yes, sir. What we're going to do, I'm going to bifurcate this a bit. I'll just give the opening remarks and give a quick overview, then I'll turn it over to Captain Miguez and Craig Medley, and they can talk about the nuances of the budget. So I'll just start by simply talking about the Annapolis Police Department. Of course, we're still committed to community policing. We take very seriously our role in providing the best public safety environment that we can for the citizens that we serve. And of course, the first slide, it says the Annapolis Police Department vision. And to kind of paraphrase it, the Annapolis Police Department shall be impartial and a just partner as it pertains to the citizens we serve. We will exercise effectiveness, efficiency, will be equitable and ethically focused. And we should guide internally and externally. We will promote the use of economy, efficiency, and be responsible for everything that we have control over in terms of our finances and our resources. And then we shall guide those seeking pathways out of the criminal justice system. As you well know, the avenue for that primarily is our reentry program, where we help returning citizens who reintegrate into the city of Annapolis to make better choices so they don't go back to the lifestyle that got them incarcerated. It's my theory that if they're going to come back, then we want to make sure they come back better citizens. And so we do our very best to do that. And the last thing is that we promote officer wellness. All those things that we do, we can't do as effectively and efficiently, that we would like to do if we don't promote officer wellness. And officer wellness entails both our physical health as well as our psychological and emotional health. Since the last time we met, whether I came before the Public Safety Committee or the Finance Committee, we made a few changes. Of course, I meet regularly with the chair of the Public Safety Committee. A couple of key changes that was made to the organizational chart. Captain Miguez helped me, and we restructured the org chart just to make the operation even more efficiently. It didn't entail us hiring any new people, although we do have a few new command staff members who introduced themselves since the last time we met. We just kind of use a kaleidoscope type effect and try to put the people where they should be to ensure the most effective and efficient operation of the overall mission of Annapolis Police Department. And in doing that, we have a few units that are direct reports to me. And if you look at the top, it says Officer Chief of Police. And I'll be brief with this. We have, I'm sorry, I have my glasses. Yeah, we have professional standards, and the director, Lakeisha Blue, just introduced herself. The manager, I'm sorry, Lakeisha Blue just introduced herself. We have oh yeah, CLEAR. That was a big one. Of course, I'm happy to report since we last met, we're back in full compliance with CLEAR. That's going to be a direct report to my office, and I will work directly with the CLEAR staff. We have 3 people committed to it: Sergeant Tanya Hernandez, well, 4 people, Lieutenant Hill O'Hurley, a civilian employee, Anna Politan, Kayla Ziegler, and Officer First Class Melanie Williamson. That comprises the CLEAR team. Additionally, the PIO, the Public Information Officer, Cortland Jackson, is a direct report to me, and he's still, if you will, in training. He's coming along very well, and he's very effective already and excited about doing a good job. Of course, the chaplain program, which has become very important. I don't talk about them enough, but the chaplain program has been very good. Of course, my administrative assistant, Darlise Johnson, and last but not least, I'm sorry, I'm having problems seeing. Oh, Miguel Dennis, yes, and he is multitasking. He's assisting Cortland Jackson, and he's also going to work with Detective Murphy on our recruitment efforts, doing the background investigations primarily. And I think that's all. And these are now, instead of going through the chain of command, these are direct reports to me. And if you look down, the deputy chief, of course, everybody knows the deputy chief, Branford. Everything else will be a direct report to him. And so I think this will make the operation even more effective and efficient. So I thank Captain Miguez for putting that together for me. Thank you, Amy. And now I'm gonna turn it over to Amy, and she'll talk about the line items in the budget and answer any questions.
Thank you, and I apologize for not getting the presentation to you sooner. I hadn't realized you all were looking at presentations ahead of time to prepare for your days. We had a very busy April with the end of the quarter for grant reporting for grants, and then also we had several grant applications that were due this month as well. So that was part of the issue with the presentation. So our personnel, to break down where the people are in the police department, as you can see with these new changes, the Office of the Chief has 7 sworn staff and 8 professional staff. Patrol Division has 61 sworn staff and 17 professional staff. That includes a number of part-time crossing guards. So that's not full-time positions. Those are a lot of those. I think there's 10 or more crossing guards. So a lot of those are crossing guards. Administrative Services Division, my division, has 13 sworn and 26 professional staff, and Investigations has 30 sworn and 13 professional staff. So for our FY25 accomplishments, most of them were listed in the budget book. However, I updated to say that we've had 5 homicides and 11 contact shootings in FY25. We've continued to respond to those incidents as they happen, and trying to plan and make things better, both with the investigations and mitigating any further violence. So far this fiscal year, we've cleared 60% of the homicides currently. So we do have some that are open. That doesn't mean that that we don't have good suspects. So those are still under investigation. We still rigorously investigate any violent crime, including shots fired incidents where no one was struck. Our positive impact program continues. It's been really important for the department in forging associations throughout the community with Maryland Reentry, with the Ordnance Road Correctional Center, with the treatment facilities, with many different career opportunities that people have. We just get more and more resources for that program. It's been a focus for the state. So we've really seen a lot of great strides made because of the investment that we've put into it and all these other organizations. Without the community involvement, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we do with that program. Speaking of grants, we sought and were awarded about $2 million of state and federal grant funding this fiscal year. Grant awards are really important in providing our services. You can see that in the budget. We continue collaborations with state and federal law enforcement agencies, things like some of these homicides where we have a suspect. We have a detective who's a part of the U.S. Marshal Task Force. It's been really helpful in tracking people down especially when they leave Annapolis, like you saw with the recent homicide on Clay Street where the man was found in Washington, D.C. We continue to be fully compliant with the Maryland Police Reform Act legislation. And then also a new grant that I mentioned is the Edward J. Byrne BJAG grant through the federal government, but it's coming through the governor's office. We use that to fund a body-worn camera reviewer position. That was funding that was cut from another grant that we got. We were able to find another grant to cover that cost. It is a cost we need to bear eventually if grant funding does run out, because the review of BWC footage is vitally important to our inspections and audits program, making sure that we're keeping track of our BWC footage. We haven't heard right now of any problems with any of our grants, so I think we're all kind of in a wait and see. Thankfully, we didn't get any letters last week, so we can only hope that that continues. The summary of our FY26 budget request, you can see we have our FY24 actual, the adjusted for 25, the projected, and then our proposed. No major increases. Salaries and benefits continue to increase over the years with union contract and other benefit changes. Nothing really big that we've seen. Our budget breakdown, again, you can see 86% of our budget is salaries and benefits, and then everything else is a much smaller section. The really small section that's unlabeled is software, the green section. So our budget enhancements for this budget, these are 6 positions being converted to civil service, a contractual UAS program manager, respiratory screenings for our officers. That's to enable us to issue masks to our officers. So the OSHA requires that we do respiratory screenings. It's the same screenings that the fire department has to use for their masks. It's just a new expense for us. Then additional officer equipment that we asked for, about, I think, 4 drones, which are those unmanned aircraft systems. And then police radios. Police radios are something that we always budget ongoing, so that we're constantly buying a few every year to keep up with the newest models, so we're not having to replace all of our radios at once. Radios are incredibly expensive. This is for about 6. This was 50 grand for 6 vehicle radios. Basically, the county did a radio upgrade, and only our very oldest radios were not compatible with that upgrade. We did not have enough already built into the budget to replace all of the ones that needed replacement. So this will bring us back up so that everyone has a working radio in their vehicle. So that's a one-time kind of increase that we asked for. And then the 2 in red at the bottom were 2 things that we asked for, positions that were not included in the proposed budget. I'm hopeful that we'll still be able to make things work with having those positions in the future. The RTIC is the Real-Time Information Center that Anne Arundel County started at their police department. It is I don't believe it's currently operating 24/7, but that's the goal that they have, is that it will be a 24/7 support for public safety in the county. And we want to have someone there so that county will also give us support. So say, we had, we had a situation with a detainee in custody that ran out of the officer's car. It occurred outside the city, but they were taking him to the Jennifer Road intake center. And that's the type of incident that the Real-Time Information Center would activate for. So they're monitoring police radios and fire radios. They're monitoring all the emergency calls that are going on. And then if something happens where that they can support either through video surveillance or license plate readers or some other way that they can support that incident, then they'll bring their resources to bear. So they have helped us already, but our providing an analyst there would kind of cement that in place, that even if we don't have someone there at the time, they'll still be happy to provide those services to us. And then the grants administrator is a position that other departments in the city have. Like I said, between Craig doing all the financial reports for our grants with the finance department, there are maybe 6 or 7 people at the department that are currently managing different grants. And it's not a great way to do it. If we had someone who could administrate them, it would streamline the process. They would, right now, each of us is having to read all the rules for submissions for, like, say, the governor's office grants, as opposed to one person knowing all the rules and just submitting them when we need them. So it's pretty inefficient. And so we're hoping to be able to do that in the future. I did want to take a little break. This was something the chief especially wanted me to include, the Annapolis Ambassador Program. So this is not something that's funded through the police department. They actually had a grant that provided this Annapolis ambassadors, which if you've been downtown, you probably had seen them. It was the Downtown Annapolis Partnership got a grant to have people basically walk around and help people, visitors, residents, and anyone they found in need. And they really took their mandate and went running. So you can see by their stats, they spoke with over 15,000 residents and visitors. They assisted with a lot of parking questions. And I can tell you, when I'm downtown and in uniform, people usually are asking me about parking. They visited all the businesses each month. They also reported any infrastructure issues to the city website. So like if a brick was loose or a manhole cover was off, they would report it. They relocated scooters and bikes that were left on the sidewalk or blocking the street. They encountered aggressive panhandlers and kind of helped mitigate those issues when they found them. And then they also helped any unhoused people that they found. So this was grant funded. I believe the grant has ended and they have not received any more grant funds. So we just wanted to speak out in support of the efforts that they did. And if they come and ask for grants, we definitely support their continuation downtown.
And that links to crime prevention. As the captain just talked about, it's not a bullet up there that it's not in some form or fashion linked to crime prevention.
So really quick, our performance measures. So we compare our crime to FY20. You can see in FY24, we were over in every category but burglary and larceny. This year to date, is not looking like it'll be much different from FY24, though. Homicides, we've actually had 5 year to date. That's one that we had in April, so that's why there's only 4 on there. And then also our security conditions, clearance rates. Are we clearing crime reliably? And for homicides, we continue on track. Like I said, this year so far, we're down, but it's not over. We're very active on those investigations. And then our response time, how big is the gap? How quickly do we respond? We continue to respond under 4 minutes for priority calls, and everything else, you're talking about 5 minutes.
Captain Migas, Chief
Yep.
Jackson, I'm going to just ask you guys to wrap it up in the next minute or so.
Yep.
okay?
The last one is the performance measures. The last time that they did a citywide survey, 54% of residents selected good or excellent for their overall feeling of safety in Annapolis. And then the big news that we got reaccredited, our accreditation was reinstated with CLIA in March. So that is great as well. And that was all.
I just want to say 2 quick things. Our fiscal year homicide numbers, right, are slightly different than the year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we show 5 homicides, but that includes from June 30th of 2024 to the present, and that encompasses 2 different years, 24 and 25. Mm-hmm. And then the last thing I say, I know we're out of time, that I'm always have to say this, usually Captain Howard will say it, our rapes are almost always intimate violence, intimate partner violence. We don't have a stranger running around raping women. It's almost always as a result of a date, some type of intimacy between the suspect and the victims.
That was a heck of a message to end on there, Chief, but I think it underscores the severity and importance of your work. Thank you. I believe we're at Alderwoman Finlayson asking questions first, but I'm going to just throw out one for you myself. I appreciate you providing the performance measures on clearance rates, or sorry, not providing the performance measures, but providing the historical data on it. But what is the benchmark? What would we like to see be? What is a reasonable expectation for what the department's clearance rate should be on? Rather than go through all of them, I'll just ask you how much.
Well, it's a hard question to answer, a good question, but a difficult one because it depends. But we've had a year in this city where we had no homicides, 0.
But divide by 0 would be a great answer.
Right.
Yes.
But that's always my benchmark. I don't believe I hear police chiefs all around the country have an acceptable number. In other words, we're going to mitigate it down like they do in Baltimore. We're going to mitigate it down to 150. And people raise their goblets and want to drink champagne. No, that's 150 families grieving. I like to see 0, sir. That would be my benchmark. But we realize that that would be in the perfect world. It has been accomplished at least once.
But I mean for the clearance rates.
And for the clearance rate, well, we're doing very good now. We're about, what are we, 54%, somewhere around there? One of the highest in the country. So that simply means it's almost a 6 in 10 chance that we're going to solve the homicide quickly in the city of Annapolis. For example, so far this year, we've had 3 in this actual calendar year, not fiscal year, but calendar year, we've had 3. Only one's unsolved. The other 2 were solved, and they were solved very rapidly. And since I've been chief here, I've enjoyed that. Call it fortuity or call it skill. I think it's both. I think it's skill first, and then secondarily, it's fortuity. But we've enjoyed a very high clearance rate. If you come into Annapolis, pulling the trigger or taking a life, it's a real high probability, sir. About 60% almost that we're going to catch you, and that's pretty good compared to the national average.
I see Captain Miguez has something to chime in.
So what I can do is I can add on the national averages for clearance rates for some of those crimes, and that would probably be helpful to you. The latest year those are available for is 2023. So those always are going to like lag behind a little bit, but we'll include that.
That would be great. Yeah, my sense is that we do have a significantly better clearance rate than the national average. But I think for the council's management, we want to do it based off of performance metrics, and we want to know what you all think is reasonable to achieve in terms of that clearance rate, and then be able to judge on.
Yes, sir. And I didn't give you a straight answer, but the straight answer would be as long as we're above the national average, and that we. So that's what I measure. I mean, we have some good detectives, and they work really hard. And because they work really hard, we are above the national average. I'm confident when Captain Miguez gives you our numbers compared to a national average, you'll appreciate what the work that we do. And as long as
I
we're above
already
that,
appreciate the work you do, Chief.
oh,
But,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you,
And
sir.
Captain Miguez, if you can just work with Budget Manager Trudeau to get that number into our benchmark here, that'd be great. Thank you. Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for the org chart. Can you give us a copy of that updated org chart? I've been asking each department to give us a staffing org chart and we appreciate the programmatic chart that's added in our budget book, but I think at least I would value the staffing org chart. How many, well, first of all, you were funded at how many officers? Was it 124? And where are we with staffing that 124?
We're at 113 right currently, which includes some in the academy. 4.
So we're still not getting close to our staffing level of 120.
Yeah, we continue to hire. We hired the same amount last calendar year that we hired the calendar year before that, which was really good. I think it was about 15. That's a really good amount to be hiring with all the background information that we need to do on people. But we also lost a huge chunk at the end of this last year with the drop people, the people in the deferred retirement program that had to leave at the end of the year. There was 5 people in that program, which is more than there usually is. It's usually capped even at a lower number, but because there hadn't been many people in it, they allowed 5 to go in, and that it's hard to make up that many at one time. And then we had another subsequent retirement after that, someone who'd hit their time. So we're expecting to lose another probably 3 or 4 at least. A couple maybe going to other departments. So
should we be thinking about, I don't want to say retention bonuses, but something to put at the higher end of the scale where people are ready to retire? I recall during my days with the teachers union, we at first needed to recruit. So we, added benefits to the front of the scale for the first 7 years. Then we realized that folks were leaving at 30. So we added 2 more years so that you get your highest salary at your 3 highest years. And then we started losing people at that end. But it was a constant move to make sure that we could, I don't want to say fill our ranks, but fill our ranks.
So we have a few different things we do. We have a hiring bonus for new entry-level officers that the city is funding, which is great. We're not able to provide, we also have a grant, the police recruitment and retention grant through the governor's office that I use for helping reimburse officers for fitness expenses. So like if they belong to a gym or they have like a Peloton, they can apply for reimbursement for that as an incentive to something that we have that other places might not have. We also do a bilingual bonus. And then also last year, part of it was a retention bonus for new officers who missed that huge entry level one that we just started giving people so that they didn't feel so bad about missing out on it. And then also for officer and officer first class with 10 or more years on, so to acknowledge their contribution to the department having stayed. We have the deferred retirement option, which should be an incentive for people to stay beyond their retirement because they'll be able to build up. They basically freeze their retirement, and that money goes into a fund, and then they get it as a lump sum when they leave, and it can get rolled over into an IRA. But it's a 4-year program. We wanted to add more years on to this last group that left. We were like, well, if one of them, even one out of the 5 stayed, that would be one more person we had. However, the union would not agree with our latest contract to add a year, but they've added it now for anyone starting the program in the future. So the county has a program that's up to, I think people can stay up to 7 years now beyond when they start going into this deferred retirement program. And they've had people continuing to re-up, each year and stay, which I'm sure has helped them retain more people. So we are looking at it from both ways, but sometimes our hands are tied with bargaining. So,
Well, I would hope that would stay on the list of options, I'll just say. Do we have anybody in the drop now?
yes, we only have one person scheduled. Well, there is only one person that's leaving the end of this year. So thankfully, it's not a bumper
Right.
crop year.
I would think that there would be some benefit in keeping that as an opener all the time. Because it, in my mind, doesn't make sense to not want to give folks that opportunity. So, when we implemented it, I guess back in 2013, we didn't think about what it would do to the rank and file.
Well, I think at that point, the concern was to move people out of the department, to have people maybe not stay forever,
Right.
but then also to have some idea of succession planning. So knowing when people were going to leave was also a good part of it.
But we're still working on the recruitment piece also. Your policies and procedures, when were they last updated?
That's why Kalia is the direct report to me. I'm happy to answer that question because we've done a fantastic job. Our policies, for the first time since I've been here, the last 6 or 8 months, they're reading far more professionally than they ever had. What we're doing now and what we didn't have the ability to do due to a man and woman power shortage, the reason that we fell behind in Kalia because we had 2 problems. We didn't provide the proofs that were needed, and then our policies didn't always reflect the standards. So now what we're doing, because Kalia will randomize what standards they want to evaluate. So to ensure that we don't get caught with our pants down, so to speak, we're just updating the policies on a regular basis to make sure. And I sent somebody to the Association of Inspector Generals, Tanya Hernandez. She recently received education and in-service credits towards knowing how to inspect with a large component in the inspection process to audit. And when we find gaps in our policies that doesn't line up with the standards set forth in Kalia, we make sure we reconcile those immediately. So we've probably done, and this is just an estimate, this is not an exact number, we've probably done 30, 35, 40 policies in the last 6 months, upgraded. And now every policy goes to Carrie. I think she's here. And she assists us in the language to make sure that they are legally sufficient. And she also helps us with making sure that the standards, that's what Kalia says we have to do. When I say standards, this is what you should do to be accredited. We make sure that our policies reflect the standards. And in the policies, we actually cite the standard the clear standard. So when the officer reads the general order or the policy, we at the bottom of the policy, we identify what's clear standard that they have to adhere to. So I'm happy that we're doing a very good job in updating our policies.
And congratulations on getting Kalia restored.
Yes, ma'am. I promised that I would. It was a lot of pressure, but I sat here at this table several months ago and assured the council and the mayor and the city manager that we would be in compliance.
Well, we knew that you were deserving all along, so.
Thank you.
Crossing guards. Did I understand that crossing guards are in the patrol division?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Okay. And no effort in getting those transferred over to the school system or the county or wherever we're trying to move them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And radios, are we on the 8 megahertz now? What are we? And that's irrelevant. I mean, really, because you get the most up to date, and I know that. I think that was my last. Oh, my question on forfeiture asset.
Mm-hmm.
There was a big jump in 25.
We never know
Projected.
exactly when we're going to get those funds. So there's always a lot kind of in the hopper.
Uh-huh.
And it depends on what happens with that case. And most of them are federal cases. So it could be a year where we get a bunch that go through, or it could be a year where there's not much. So it's really hard to predict what the revenue is from that. Not just because, we don't know what cases are going to happen this
Right.
year, and then we don't know how long it's going to take to process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're just guessing for the 100.
We have
And
we have an idea, but we just don't know over the next 5 years what income will hit.
Okay, I think that was my last question. Thank you very much.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you very much. I know that you talked about this, but could you just repeat the UAS program manager, what that person does?
Yes, so it was an ask in our enhancements as Alderman Chandelmeyer was interested in the program as well. But it's to look at having a drone as a first responder program. It's something that it would be in its early stages. And so the manager would help kind of implement that program and make sure that the council and the residents are all aware of what it is and have input on how we use it. But there is different certifications that people need to operate those types of systems. So this manager would make sure that people are properly trained, that they have the proper certification. We would have some sort of system where we post information about the flights that we use these for on the website. So this manager would, make sure that information is posted in a timely way. Like, this is something that we wouldn't post when we're out flying it necessarily, depending on what the situation is. But we would want there to be a definitive, why it was flown, what the path was that it flew. We need policies on how long data is retained on flights where nothing comes of it. There's no criminal case to follow. So it's someone pretty much to establish the program from the ground up and make sure it is managed and set up correctly. And then the thought is that there would be operators throughout the department that then would report to this program manager, and that program manager would make sure that everything is being operated the way it should be.
And I'll just add, myself, Alderwoman Finlayson, Captain Howard, and I think Captain Klondis, when he was here, we took a delegation to Hagerstown. The reason why we chose Hagerstown for the drone program, they're very comparable in size. Their demographics are closely related to Annapolis. They have a population of about 40,000. They also have Camp David there. We have the Naval Academy. So we talk about a drone program. You talk about two very important federal presence in both of those jurisdictions that need the airways, and the drones can interfere. But the chief of police told me at the end of their presentation they would gladly come to Annapolis and give a presentation. And if we adapted a policy, it would be heavily modeled after Hagerstown. And if you ever go on their website, everything that the captain said was right on point. But if you go in there, they talk about all of that. I learned some things like, I think anything below 400 feet, you may need a warrant depending on what you're flying over, because there's an expectation of privacy. But they were very sharp. They knew, and they called their drone operators pilots. They used a joystick, and what I loved about it, they employ young people. Because kids they're very efficient using those joysticks, and so it was an opportunity for them to hire adults, but very young adults, some in their late teens, to operate those, and so many benefits I thought to having that program. It's nothing but a small helicopter at a 1/100th of a price, and we could accomplish the same thing. In fact, many departments with helicopters are now favoring drones because it's cheaper and in many ways more efficient and not as dangerous.
So that leads to my next question. Can you tell me what the cost of the contract service?
We just don't have estimates. I don't know if you,
I think they're on there under special projects breakdown. It's listed in there as unnamed aircraft systems. It's unmanned.
Yeah, it should be unmanned. Yeah.
So
that was going to be my next question: is what were unnamed aircraft?
Yes.
Yeah, that's spy equipment.
So,
unnamed is spy equipment. This
is unmanned.
Notifications will be duly made, so it's not unnamed.
So it's listed as 45,000, but that's for 4 drones. So it's not only could they be used in the way that we've described, but we currently have drones that we use for things like accident reconstruction, crime scene. And so the drones that we currently have they're old. they're quite old. And so this was also a replacement for those. So there's 2 larger ones that are suitable for crash reconstruction, and then 2 smaller drones that could be operated inside a building for emergency incidents where we want to, as kind of like, we have a remote, mobile camera kind of thing. This would be another option that we could use.
Asset could send them in when they're doing entries. High-risk search warrants can send the drones in to possibly identify any areas that can't be seen upon entry, and that minimizes the risk of having to engage any potential suspect in gunfire, because we know where they're at. We have them cornered, and that way we can kind of we could determine whether they're holding somebody against their will, all that kind of stuff. So locating children, those are some of the things that they've been very effective doing. I believe they told a story similar to that, Captain, if my memory serves me correct. The kid got lost, and the drone actually spotted him.
Yeah, a number of years ago, we had a missing adult with dementia, and he was found off 665 in the woods. We were doing foot patrols to try and locate him, and by chance we were able to find him. But the weather was bad. He'd been out in the wet, and he was okay. But with a drone, it would have been a lot easier to go up and try and locate him. I did invite you all to a demonstration that will include drone demonstrations in June. So definitely, if you can make that anytime that day.
Okay. But the 45 doesn't include the
person? The person. No.
That's in contract
that is
services.
Just equipment. That's in the person is, it's included on our staffing at the very bottom.
Right. I'm just trying to get to that number. What is that number? I see it's a contract services. Do we know what that number is? And I see in contract services we have 2,417,000, but of that 202,417,000, Do we know what that particular?
I can get that amount for you.
Thank you. The one last thing I'll say is, Chief, thank you for coming to my meeting last Thursday. I think that your presentation to my meeting was beneficial to those that were there. And I loved the fact that you actually stayed longer. And I hope that I'm not in trouble with Deputy Branford for keeping you.
Well, I told the deputy that because I did have another commitment, but it got so interesting, and I sat there and I was learning. I enjoyed the other presenters that you had, so I wanted to learn more. So I made other arrangements and then stayed. So I'm glad I stayed too.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Trudeau.
There is $102,200 in salaries and benefits for the UAS program manager.
I have, once again, some small questions and some big questions. Starting with the small ones, do we have an estimate on the cost to restart the Annapolis Ambassadors program? That's something you guys have? No? Maybe I get it.
I don't have that data from them. The Annapolis Ambassadors program.
It was about $100,000.
Okay.
It was about $100,000. That's a pretty close, accurate. If it, I may be right on point, but somewhere around $100,000.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm very interested. We've gotten this legislation. I think we passed it last council meeting that will broaden our ability to implement speed cameras. I would very much like to see that happen this coming fiscal year, or even before this new fiscal year. Is there something that we need to do in your budget to make that happen?
It's really a low cost thing. What it is it's time intensive, and it requires cross departmental collaboration, which Public Works has been really interested in doing that. I'm not sure of their staffing capabilities to actually get things done. Things like making sure this proper signage is up, making sure that the areas are the correct areas where we can actually put these things, these cameras. And then it requires someone on the police side to kind of manage getting those things done. And there is no one tasked with that, which means that mainly I'm the one handling it, which is a lot with my other duties. Once they're installed, our traffic safety officers are the ones reviewing the citations. And there was legislation, I've not heard yet if the governor signed it, that that we could have clerks be trained and review those. But right now, those reviews on average are 50 citations a day. They average out.
Wow. With just what we have already.
Just what we have on hand.
Oh.
So if you're talking about a more robust program, it's going to require more time. And those traffic safety, as I think all of you know from the emails that we get, traffic safety is one of the big areas of concerns for many of the communities. And so those are the same officers that are responding out to all the crashes that happen and helping with the enforcement activities that we get from community members. So, obviously patrol officers, they also do those enforcement things, but traffic safety they also oversee the crossing guards.
Sure.
Well, I'll just add one quick thing. Unlike an officer pulling over a motorist, it can go to court and swear under the penalty of perjury that the facts that they're testifying to are true. That's when you identify not only the car, but the operator. With the camera program, it depends on where they're at. Like, for example, if you're in a 25-mile-per-hour residential zone, it has nothing to do with the behavior. It has everything to do with the car. In other words, whoever the owner of the car is liable, but it's it has nothing to do with the behavior. And so I say all that to say that those are programmed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times they won't even trigger unless you're about 12 to 15 miles over. And so if it's 25 posted, you're not even talking about a violation until they reach the speed limit of 40. You know, an officer could testify in the court of law. I guess the point that I'm trying to make, that 40 was entirely reckless, and they can make a direct observation and identify the driver. With the camera program, it's a little trickier. It doesn't always solve the problem. I'm not against them, but I just want to give you more information in terms of what to expect.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, Chief, and that's a perspective I hadn't considered. I will say for myself, and I know I speak for a couple other members of the council, now that we've passed that legislation saying we can, getting it actually up and running is a high priority. So if you all could follow up with us, let us know what, if anything, you need in your budget for that to happen this coming year. I would really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. The one thing I would say is that, and I don't know, I'll talk to Captain Miguez if there's some kind of evaluation, because and I'm not speaking for the council, but I would argue that it does serve as a deterrent.
Yeah.
You know, they see the signs up there, speed cameras, or they see the physical cameras. It is a deterrent.
Well, and you know where it doesn't serve as a deterrent is on Duke of Gloucester, where we have a sign up that says that we have a speeding camera, but we don't actually. So we should probably get that working in one way or another.
Yes, sir.
So much bigger question for you is, and then I do want to save a little bit of time for Alderman Arnett because he's got some good questions, I think. But I'll save this as my last one. Police department was $1.6 million under budget this year. I've heard from you guys, and I would generally agree, you do a really good job. Like, we are meeting a lot of our objectives with $1.6 million less than what's budgeted for. Why should we not say, okay, this means we're meeting our goals, we're underspending. Why not cut $1.6 million out of the FY26 budget?
Well, I would argue that policing and the streets are unpredictable. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And there's not a incident that occurs in this city or anywhere else where there's no financial impact, whether we're paying overtime to try to catch a predator, whether we have to put more officers on the street, whether we need new equipment that we haven't considered. So I would be cautious to say because we were 1.6 million under. I know that's a lot of money. And sometimes I've been taught in school that when you don't spend enough, that can be just as problematic as spending too much.
Sure.
For all involved. But 1.6 million, I think that we're funded as fairly as we could be. I would love to one day have a conversation about the University of Maryland study and talk about, because, you know, I'm in favor of expanding the size of the Annapolis Police Department. What we try to do is to be efficient in our economy. That's one of the things that I'm big on, and my staff is good at managing, is that we spend our money wisely and be accountable. But I know we don't have a lot of time in this forum. That's why I asked for and was granted the ability to hire the University of Maryland from the School of Criminology to look at how we're structured. And I would like to have more officers. I know that we haven't filled the positions that we have, but that's not to say that if I had a problem, I would like to have a bigger problem and have more vacancies, because one day I'm confident that we'll strike the right chord and fill those vacancies and we can do more for the citizens. For example, real quickly, reentry. Robert Horn is practically a one-man show, and I would like to have that expanded out, but I have to have the ability to set a salary and hire somebody. It doesn't have to be a sworn person. You know, we have one person that's helping him out in the field, and that's Bishop Charlie Carroll. I would like to do more things to more crime prevention. And that's a whole nother conversation I will gladly discuss with the council. So I have a vision and for community policing, and a lot of it hasn't been realized yet. So for that reason, I would say I would just humbly ask the council not to consider, slicing our budget because we didn't spend, all of what was allocated to us last year.
Thank you, Chief. And I know nobody likes to think about budget cuts, but it's a question I get asked, and I wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to answer it in the public forum.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Captain Migas, did you have something brief to add?
Yes, actually. Part of it is, the main part of that 1.6 million is the positions that aren't filled. And I believe it's still part of the city code that, we should have even more positions that probably wouldn't be filled, and we'd have an even bigger budget gap. I think we do a good job of projecting what our expenses are going to be, which means we build in increases, and maybe sometimes those increases don't come to pass as well. So the bulk of that money is positions that are unfunded, and then there are some savings that we get as well.
So also a lot of those other line items are certain expenses that depend on crime. Different gunshot residue analysis. Depends on how much we use it. BWC redaction. This year it was way over because we're getting a lot more BWC requests. So it really depends on usage, but it has to be there. Some years it's less, some years like this one, it's way over. Language line is another big one that it depends on how many calls we get and how much that we use that service. So it's in there. Some years it's a little less, some years it's a bit more. I've got it dialed in pretty good, but it also depends on the day.
And he made my point. That's precisely my point.
And I particularly also, I appreciate what you were saying, Captain Migas, about our code requirements. All right, I'm going to turn it to Alderman Arnett for one question because we're right at time, and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is for you. Alderwoman Finlayson mentioned the DROP program. I'm assuming on the pension, police and fire pension plan, any changes to the DROP program still are required to be budget neutral for the pension plan?
Yes, I can speak to that. I think I'm the secretary of the.
Okay.
Yes, we required it to be cost neutral. It gets evaluated every so often by the actuary, and it's still determined to be cost neutral, even with that additional optional fifth year.
Okay. Quick questions on your presentation. I'll start with one towards the end, which is the conversion rate, which I'm curious how we can, on homicide, have a conversion rate that is greater than 100%.
It's when we solve the case that
Right.
the clearance gets measured.
Right.
So it doesn't occur when the homicide occurs. It's when
Okay.
the homicide is cleared. So that last fiscal year, we cleared homicides that didn't occur in that fiscal year. So that's why the rate was 133.
Right.
Yeah, and I clarified that before. There's a difference
No,
between.
because I'm really short of time, but
Mhm.
I'm happy you're clearing them, and you do have a great record on that. Most of my questions relate to staffing, so going back to your slide that shows the personnel, I add up to 175 there, and you're authorized 194. I'm assuming that there's 19 other personnel that are not accounted for somewhere in these 4 divisions.
So there are positions that are unfilled in this staffing summary on the page. So that's why there's ones that are missing from there. Are you
Okay.
saying our current staffing?
Right. Well, is this current rather than allocated?
Yeah, that is current rather than allocated.
Okay.
Yes.
So speaking of allocated, with the population change and that old artifact, the 3.2, shouldn't you really be up to 131 or 132 foreign officer positions?
Yes.
And are you still reflecting 128?
We're 124 right now.
So we're not even budgeting the full amount that you really should be having. And if we did, the budget float would be even bigger.
Right. The city
right.
code requires us to have 3.2 per 1,000.
Right.
And that is not where we're at.
So I've asked this of a variety of chiefs. I'll ask you too, Chief. is there ever been any thought of an auxiliary police force that would not have to have all the qualifications of sworn officers, but could fill some of these needs that, for example, showing up at traffic accidents or things like that? And would that help relieve the burden on our sworn officers?
Yes, I'm not opposed to it. In fact, I was just told we just hired one. I'm a big fan of auxiliary police. I would love to bring him back. I don't know what the cost would be. They would have to be supervised. I guess we could put them under patrol.
So when we have 124 officers, we have a certain number of supervisors allocated. So if you're talking about adding programs, those get added to supervisors that are a static amount. So auxiliaries are a great idea. We've had them in the past, but the problem, like the chief said, is making sure we have adequate supervision of those auxiliary officers, and those supervisor numbers, unless we expand that, it's hard to keep adding things to people's plates and expecting all of them to remain in the air.
Well, I understand that, but I will just say for my constituents, feeling safe is the number one. And if we had an auxiliary police force that could be doing traffics or coming to noise with a decibel meter or things like that don't really need a sworn officer, but do give a presence in the community, I would be very interested in seeing a budget, including supervision. I understand that would backfill that, particularly with so many sworn officer vacancies, which seems to be chronic, not just for us, but across the country. And the number one job is safety of our citizens, our visitors, and our businesses. So if this auxiliary could go from having 6 or 7 people on a shift to having maybe 10, some of which are auxiliary, I think that would be worth considering and suck up a lot of the float that you have in your budget each year because we can't find the.
Well, we do have one, so we'll do our very best to start expounding on that.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all very much for being here. We do appreciate it. Thank you all for having the whole command staff here if we had additional questions. And my guess is that there will probably be some more that we'll follow up with you by email about. And I think with that, we'll wrap things up. Yeah, were you about to say something, Ms. Moran? Okay. Excellent. All right. Thank you. Seeing nothing else for the good of the order, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn. Thank
Second.
you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.